Hello, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite podcast, Topical, Rationalizing the Monkey Brain. And you know what? We're gonna really get on that monkey brain today. So we got some good ones today. I got an awesome title suggestion from Bailey: Dinner, Death Note, and Spongebob. And that's all you need to know about what we're going to be talking about today. So
That's
following,
right.
oh yeah. So following up on what I did last time with Rod, where we started off by talking about what we had for dinner, it went so well. In fact, it actually went horribly. So basically, what happened is, you know how Rod's a Muslim, right?
Yes.
So I forgot about that, and I talked about how I had these Asian short ribs, and how yeah, I just went on like a 5 minute rant about how ribs are like the strangest food. Yeah, that did not go over well, but
Okay.
it certainly made things interesting. But I had a much less controversial dish tonight. I had chicken marsala, which basically what chicken marsala is for anyone that isn't aware. I wouldn't if I didn't have it. Frankly, it's just a chicken breast, or I guess you can have a chicken thigh if it doesn't really make a difference. And then it has like a little sauce on top of it, and then it has a bunch of onions, which I despise, as I've previously established, and some mushrooms, which I don't despise, but Bailey in fact does. And yeah, I had some broccoli with that, 80 grams in fact, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Have you ever had chicken marsala, Bailey?
No, I don't eat a lot of fancy food.
Yeah, I guess that would be considered fancy.
All right, I had a much more down to earth meal. Had just some French toast and bacon.
Mm,
Just bread dipped in an egg batter and cooked in a skillet. It was pretty good.
breakfast for dinner.
Yes, I tried all natural maple syrup. It was kind of bitter. It tastes like molasses, so I went for the Aunt Jemima instead.
What is Argemino?
Aunt Jemima.
Or whatever you just said.
Yeah, Aunt Jemima. It's just a syrup. It's maple syrup.
Oh, oh, okay. Oh, as an aunt, as in like a family member. Okay,
Oh yeah, no.
gotcha.
Yes, I murdered my aunt and put her on my French
Well,
toast.
no, I thought it was like a brand name or something.
Well, it is.
Well, yeah, but I thought it was like, I don't know, Aunt Paula's maple syrup or something like that.
I see.
Okay, well, after that brief interlude, we're gonna get into Death Note because I actually convinced Bailey to try it out. He had some hesitations because it's gonna proceed to tell me why it is an anime, frankly. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it's an
fantastic show.
it's an anime, but it's still a good show.
Oh, it's
Um,
definitely a great
it-
show.
yeah, it was my first like real anime. The only other thing I mean I've seen like episodes of Naruto, but there's too many to keep count. No, it doesn't really count. Like who hasn't seen at least footage of Naruto? But I watched Castlevania on Netflix, which is an American anime basically, and I found that pretty good. So I thought I'd try this. It was my recommended, and it's highly praised. So I watched it, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I want to start with this. So, from over the entire show, who was your favorite character? Was it Light? Was it L? Those are really the only two options. Maybe
Um,
Ryuzaki, but because Ryuzaki's
hmm,
pretty awesome.
yeah, I did like Ryuzaki. Um, I don't know. Hmm. I should thought. I mean, Light, and L were cool, but I honestly I liked Nier better than L.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because he was so meticulous. Though honestly, I don't want to say any spoilers.
No, don't worry about it. If anyone doesn't want to hear spoilers for Death Note, you should probably skip like 10 minutes ahead in this
All right.
podcast.
Well, I mean, like everyone else, I kind of wanted Light to win at the end and have no one in his way, but that it had to happen, I guess.
Yeah,
That he was stopped. I wanted him to win.
yeah, I think everyone
That's
wanted him to win.
I think I might have liked him as a character more if he had won. But Nier was just one I like. Did you watch with subs or dubs?
I watched the
Sub or
dub.
dub?
I watched the dub.
I watched. I tried the sub for. Yeah, it was okay. I like the dub narrative better, like the script, the tiny changes, and I thought Nier's English voice actor was really good.
Yeah,
So I mean, everyone was really good.
it was fantastic voice acting all around. I tried to watch like 3 episodes of the sub just so I could be like, "Ooh, I watched both of them," and I couldn't do it. And that's one of the big things in anime is once you listen to one version of it, all of the characters just seem different if you try and listen to the other one like you're used to.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's a bizarre thing. But
Also,
how did you
you
hand?
asked
Yeah, sorry.
you asked what your favorite my favorite character was. You didn't even like mention Ryuk as an example. He's pretty cool, though less prominent in later episodes.
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, this is kind of
I
embarrassing, but
mean,
I was actually thinking of Ryuk when I said Ryuzaki.
I would liked both. Ryuzaki was when Ryuzaki like pulled out his sniper on the helicopter. I was like, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Yeah, and that whole
When they
situation.
were taking who were they? They were going after the guy from the what was that?
Yeah, the company, the third
Who had
Kira.
the
What is his name?
yeah? Oh crap, what was his name?
Here, let me look up.
It started with a G, I think.
Does it start with a G?
It started with a G
Hmm.
or an H. It was the Yotsuba
Oh
group.
yeah, Yatsuba. Yeah. What was his name?
It was like Hichito or something.
Dang it, yeah, I can't think of it right now. We'll get back to that, but yeah.
It's like yeah, okay, whatever. But the fact that yeah, basically you see this but whip out a gun in someone's hand before they can shoot anyone or themselves. It's pretty,
Yeah, and like also
those snipers are always cool.
definitely, and like that whole scene where like he had to basically fake suicide so that he could get out of the group. That was awesome, and just the whole situation where he was
Yeah.
he was like the brand spokesman for the second Kira. That was great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just realizing now that like I don't remember anyone's name from this show.
Actually,
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I got Ryuk
surprised
mixed.
there's not that many characters.
No, I know, but I haven't seen this
I
show in
mean, I
like
don't
nine
remember.
months. Crap. What was Light's girlfriend's name? Oh, it was Misa. That's right.
Yeah,
Okay. Here,
the blob, yes, but
Oh, it was Higuchi. That was the third Kira.
yeah.
Hmm. You're breaking up a lot here. Here, I'm gonna try hanging up on the Skype call and calling you back because
I am
yeah, like a lot.
really.
I mean, like as
You're
if
not
this is almost Discord still.
surprising.
Here, I'll just try hanging
Wait,
up on.
as we speak.
Yeah, like as you speak. Hmm.
Great.
Yeah. Now don't worry about it. I'll keep the recording
All right,
running.
we'll just try it.
Here. All right, let's see if this fixes anything. Dang, that's one of the first times I've had problems with Skype. Yeah, I mean, it honestly felt like it was Discord there with how much it was breaking up. It was really annoying. Yeah, but here, I gotta figure out what else I'm gonna ask him about Death Note. Oh, he's back. Hello?
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Okay, hopefully it's not gonna be breaking up as much because literally I could barely understand what you were saying, and I
Did it start breaking up later?
yeah, it kept breaking up more and more as it went.
Do I sound okay now?
It's decent. I'll see if it holds up. Hmm.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
I can always turn myself.
Okay, well, I'm crossing my fingers.
You sound okay.
Yeah.
I haven't had a big problem with you.
Hmm.
It's odd. Let me check. Just checking cables.
I don't know. I've had this happen with a couple other people, but it seemed like it was just because they were pretty far away or they had bad internet connections, and in those cases I had to go to the phone for them. But I've never had a problem with you, so I don't.
Oh, you know what? Let me connect. I'm on. I can connect to a better internet right now. No,
That might help.
I'm not on.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's probably gonna make him drop out of the call, or at least not be able to talk for a bit. So, in terms of my thoughts on Death Note, I'm really curious to see what he has to say about like the tone shift that occurred as soon as L was killed. First of all, I want to see if he thought the whole thing was believable, and if the entire show got a little too full of itself around that time, and just it became too much of just, oh, Elle knows to question Kira, and is he ever gonna actually do anything about it, or is he just gonna keep playing mind games with him? And like the whole problem with that was it went on for like 10 episodes, so it was really weird in that regard. But yeah, I'm curious to see what he has to say about that, and also just how Light's character transitioned as it was basically going through not a hero's journey, it was almost a villain's journey where you obviously start with the villain having nothing, and then he makes like this incredible climax, not climax, he makes an incredible climb, and then he eventually reaches this climax where he has all the power and all the hubris in the world, and he feels like he can do anything in the world, and he's got the
Hello.
girl and whatever. Hey, you back?
Yeah, Switch Networks. It's probably twice the connection that we had. So,
Yeah, hopefully that ping holds up.
sounding better? Any better? Or
No, it does.
clearer?
It does sound better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Lovely.
let's cross our fingers then.
Okay.
So something I was just talking with the folks at home about was what you thought about the tone shift that occurred after obviously Elle was killed by Light. Now, like first of all, did you think that it was believable that Elle should have gotten killed in that situation, and did you like how it went? And then after that, did you like where Light's character went, or did you think that they kind of forced a hero's journey?
I liked how it went. I mean, it was realistic. It's not like, and it wasn't. They do a good job of creating an interesting storyline without giving Light away, like every episode. They find creative ways, and I thought the introduction of a second notebook was very smart on like the producer's part, and introducing a second Shinigami.
Yeah, obviously in the form of Ray there.
Yes. So, wait, Ray.
Yeah, sorry, Rem. Why did I say Ray? That's Star
Yeah,
Wars.
I don't know. Yeah, it didn't feel. I mean, it didn't feel rushed, and Light's character after. I mean, it was what you'd expect if you kill your greatest threat and then have like no one in your way.
Yeah, and I think that's fair.
At
And
least for a few episodes, till near and what's his name come along?
yeah, what was it? Mello.
Mello, yeah,
Yeah, that was always so weird for me because I kept thinking of Carmelo Anthony whenever they
Carmelo
would say,
Anthony.
because that's the only Mello I know. And yeah,
Yeah.
that was quite odd, but apparently it's Japanese.
So
But
yeah, I do think like honestly, episodes like 3 through 8 or 9 are probably the best, but they're all good. But just the sheer back and forth between Elle and Light in the early episodes is what hooks you till the end.
oh, definitely. And like even on the second half of the show, when they started switching up the OP and the ED, I thought it was really interesting that one episode where they were Light and when Light was trying to get to the desert to save his sister, and like you could see like he was emotionally breaking down during the whole thing, and that's really
Yeah,
when he started to crack, and I thought that was fascinating to see. It was
yeah, especially when his dad died and he was like fake crying,
oh
fake. He
that
was like
was just
fake
dark.
upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like,
And
yeah,
speaking of like his dad doing stuff, like that one scene where like his dad was about to shoot him in the head, and like, oh, that was
oh
crazy.
yeah, yeah, that was stressful. Especially that's when Light had his memory wiped.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's why it was like crazy. And I thought he was just gonna die.
yeah, I thought so too.
Maybe, or at least Misa.
Yeah,
Until I mean, he said, never mind.
but
But yeah, I was like, but who's gonna replace Light with Rover? I was like, they're gonna give it to Matsuda. I hope not.
yeah, that it did feel like it was gonna come to that because they kept building him up, and he did
Yeah,
become a really interesting character as the show went on. But I think they went a little too far off it by the final episode. Just because like
maybe.
he became like the ultimate heroine, and he's like, "You all are evil, and I'm the only good guy in this show." And what are you thinking, Light? And it was like, "I trusted you," and I don't know,
Yeah,
it was a little sappy, but
just like it was a good final episode though.
yeah, it was.
The final episode felt a little rushed. Maybe
Well,
it would have felt better as like an hour long special.
Yeah, which is funny because this is a 37 episode anime, but yeah, it kind of did.
Yeah, but not a bad ending. But I mean, I guess predictable.
I mean, yeah, there's only one way it could go. They couldn't let Light win, even if when
Well,
you.
he could have won. That could have been an ending.
Yeah, but it would have felt
Uh,
unsatisfying.
I'm just surprised. Well, Light's mistake was underestimating Nier when Nier is honestly like as smart, if not smarter than L. Plus, being at a very young age,
Yeah.
like is Nier a guy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like his intelligence is as great as L's at half the age. He's probably I'm gonna say he's like I would say he's 13 or 14.
Yeah, if not younger. He was playing with a bunch of toy figurines at one
Yeah,
point.
honestly, but I just say for his vocabulary and critical thinking, I would say he's a teenager.
Yeah. It always kind of weirded me out how much L was always just eating sweets. That was a little weird.
Yeah, that was, and just makes sound effects too. He's like, it was like, yeah, it was like,
I
why?
always loved those. That was great.
I was like, and it was like a different food every episode, basically. It was interesting.
Yeah. One of the biggest disappointments in the show for me was how they treated Mikami by the end of the show. Because like it felt like they really roped him into Light falling apart, and I liked his character when they introduced it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. He loves justice, and he goes through his life, and he's always trying to help people, and he's like a law
Yeah,
professor or student or whatever, and like he actually cares about justice. And then it just became no, actually, he's just evil, and he's just trying to kill everyone. He's like, delete, delete, and that it got a little crazy.
oh yeah, um, yeah. They like, I thought he was written fine early. Like I think we first see him saying delete, 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 and we think he's evil, and then we find out he's not super evil.
Yeah, and then they kind of changed their
But then
mind.
they make him evil again, and
Yeah,
they also make him kind of stupid, or he messes up, or he did something.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is different. Not different. It is interesting how they treated each of the four Kiras, with Light being someone that always tries to outthink everyone, and Misa always just doing whatever she wanted to emotionally to
yeah.
get her way, and then Higuchi just actually
But
being evil.
those were some good episodes when Light and Misa were like um, sending messages back and forth over like Sakura TV.
Yeah, that was really
Like,
interesting. Especially that
yeah.
one where like they were trying to do the sting operation and get her, and like she could see everyone and was killing everyone, and they're like, "Don't let her see you!" And
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was
That
like,
was crazy. Dude, that was crazy. I was like, well, what is going on?
yeah, because I mean, you just don't know what's going on at that point.
And
And
then you find Misa's like the dumbest human being alive.
well, yeah, like she only had one goal in life, and it was to be Light's girlfriend. And
Yeah, be with Kira.
yeah,
What if Kira had been like another girl?
that would have
She'd
been
be like,
weird.
oh, well, thank you.
Well, I mean,
But
Rem didn't care.
yeah, it's true.
Rem
I
was
liked Ren.
an interesting character because like her entire thing was like, I mean, she fell for the same thing that crap, what was his name? Was that one Shinigami that died because she was always staring at Misa and like trying to save her in life? Was that jealousy or lust or?
Yeah, I think its name was Jealous.
Oh, okay, jealous. Yeah. I mean, like they do go down like the different paths that Shinigami can take. You have Ryuk, who's just always being a pester and like just always teasing Light and be like, "Oh, I know what's gonna happen. Do you know what's gonna happen, Light?" And
Yeah. But at the end, I kind of like how he was kind of evil again, like God of Death. Like he had the super red eyes.
yeah,
He was like, yeah, well, because he was like, I told you I'm gonna have to kill you. I said that at the beginning,
yeah. And it was really funny.
and he did. It was cool.
Yeah, and I loved his apple addiction at the beginning of the show. That was hilarious.
Oh, that was funny.
But yeah,
I
that's.
don't understand that, but
I
um,
mean, why not? But were you a fan of the intro music and the ending music? Obviously, you were for the first two, but what did you think about the second ones that they went with?
I didn't like the second, or they when did they change the music? Like after L died,
No, actually, it's interesting. They did it around like
even
episode
after.
16, so like
Yeah,
a little
it was
before.
even after.
No, it was a little before.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It was before L died.
yeah, it was weird. They definitely did it around like episode 16.
Honestly, so I watched like each of them once, and then I just skipped them. The only song I really liked was the end credits of the first song when you see the art of light with the pencil in his hand.
Yeah, that was great.
That's the only good one, honestly. That's the only one I liked.
Okay, so I'm actually a fan.
Yeah, it was pretty catchy.
Oh, you know I'm playing that after the podcast ends, but
Oh, okay. Well, if you know the name, that's fine.
yeah, but I
So
was
let
actually
me.
a big fan of the second ending song as well. I thought that was pretty good. The second opening song I thought was horrible. I just thought that was
Yeah, it's like I don't like a lot of hardcore anime opening songs
well, that's not
because
even
just
hardcore. That's just death metal at that point.
yeah, same thing. I just don't like in your face music.
Yeah, like they're just screaming cuss words at you, and
Yeah, I just want a memorable theme song. Like for example, like Attack on Titan. I mean, that's just memorable
yeah.
and catchy.
And that's
Yeah,
one of the things I love about anime is almost every anime I've watched has had an amazing theme song, and that has to
yeah.
do with the fact that in a lot of ways, I choose the anime I watch based on the theme song,
Hmm.
because you get a lot of ideas about what the plot of the show is going to be like, and it's a big thing to keep you watching the show. Is like, okay, I think I'm done watching, and then you just listen to the next opening song, and you're like, oh, I'm getting hyped again. I want to watch another one.
Yeah. I did. I watched an episode of One Punch Man a few days ago.
Oh, okay.
Not bad. Pretty. It was fun.
Yeah, well, I'll have to send you
That's a change of pace from Death Note.
No, definitely. It's a lot more of a shonen show just in terms of the action that goes
Yeah.
on. But yeah, I'll definitely have to send you a list of anime you should check out. And obviously, I don't expect you to watch any of them, but just in case you want some
We'll see.
options, go.
I mean, if it's on, as long as it's on Netflix.
Okay, well that severely limits things, but yeah, I'll have to take a look.
There's a lot of stuff on Netflix.
Yeah, there's a good amount, but I honestly I just don't know how much it has to be honest, because I'm one of those terrible people that pirates. So
Now,
yeah.
did you watch? Netflix made like an American spin-off movie of Death Note.
I heard horrible things about it, so I didn't check it out.
Yeah, it's got like mixed and negative reviews, but people they liked Ryuk.
Oh yeah, he was the one good character in that.
Well, because it's Willem Dafoe, so
Yeah,
good actor right there. And they liked L's like portrayal, how he's kind of different, but he also has like a jar of candy. But he has like he always covers up his face other than his eyes, and he's black.
yeah, that was
They,
interesting.
people liked that. People liked L and Ryuk,
Well,
and that's it.
I saw a lot of people that really hated the turn that L's character went down in the second half of the show, where he just became an emotional wreck after crap, what's his butler died, and he just became completely irrational and was trying to shoot people, and
Actually,
yeah, like they thought it just got ridiculous. But
well, I didn't even watch the movie,
no, okay, well, don't watch it.
so I was just wondering.
Yeah, no,
And also, people complained that Ryuk was never like full lighting.
yeah, I mean, he's not really. No, he isn't full lighting in the show. There's plenty of times when they're walking down the street or something.
Yeah, like that's what. Yeah, just because they should have done that. Just because the light's the only one who can see him
Yeah,
most of the time.
I don't know. Maybe they were trying to downplay some bad part of the costume or something, but I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, it looked good. From I watched some scenes. They tried to make Ryuk have like no comic relief at all. They just tried to make him really evil.
Yeah, that's a shame because that's the one thing that's amazing about Ryuk is like he's always cracking jokes, and that's what makes
Yeah,
him a fun character.
or laughing like hysterically. He
Yeah,
sounds like the Joker when he laughs.
yeah, which is always fun.
Kind of looks like him too. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, in a way. Obviously, without the metal.
At least the grin and the slick back hair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that about wraps up our discussion of Death Note. So, if anyone wants to check it out, do it. Go on Netflix,
Oh,
go on Crunchyroll.
yep.
Just check it out. It's awesome. If you're concerned and you're like, oh, it's anime, I don't want to see a bunch of fan service or anything, just check it
It's
out.
it's really like not mega kawaii weird. It's just it could pass. You could change the animation style and it would still be a good TV show.
Yeah,
Don't think of it as anime.
no, exactly. And just have the right expectations going in, and don't get your hopes up too high. Don't think it's The Wire or anything. To be fair, I haven't seen The Wire, but I've heard great things about it. But
What is The Wire?
it's a crime TV show that's based in Baltimore, and basically it goes through inner city Baltimore and the drug trade in the early
Oh wow.
2000s. And apparently it's an amazing TV show. I haven't watched it yet just because I'm not interested in crime dramas or anything. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, great show apparently.
Interesting. I do want to say like the best. I think episode 4 is the best episode for me. I believe that's the one with the whole bus plan, the bus scenario, the hijacking.
Yeah, that was really good. And one of my
That was the most like thorough plan in the entire show. It was
yeah,
great.
and one of my two favorite moments from the show was obviously the Linda L. Taylor incident. That was amazing. That really convinced everyone that watched that, like, okay, the show knows how to create like an elaborate story here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was amazing. And I also really liked the whole situation where the episode, I forget which number it was, where Light was just trying to track down and stop the person from the bus's wife from going to the police station and
Yeah.
reporting him. Like, because the entire episode was just him walking down the street with her and trying to stop her from doing anything. But there was such amazing pacing during that, and like the beats just kept coming during the news.
Oh man, we didn't even talk about the music. It's like take away the intro and outro songs. There's like maybe 6 tracks that they use in the show.
Yeah, and they're all amazing.
And they're all reusable because they're all like 3 of them are for intensity. I mean, no, 2 because they both feature like trombone.
Yeah,
which is weird. I thought that was weird at first, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like it makes everything move like so much faster than it is. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, especially those scenes where he's writing down stuff from the Death Note, sound like they just break out the gospel choir.
Yeah, and when it all kicks in, you're like, oh, here we go, here we go.
Yeah, like there's a whole build up to it, and like it's great.
And you hear the trombone go.
Oh man, this is making me want to rewatch Death Note.
When's the last time you saw it?
So I watched it. When did I watch it? I believe in October of last year, and I tried to watch like 3 episodes a couple months ago, and I gave up on it. But I just recently rewatched a different anime that I had seen, so now it kind of makes sense to rewatch some of the other ones.
The good news is YouTube has like best Death Note moments compilation and stuff like that, so you can see like the 20 best minutes of Death Note without rewatching.
Yeah,
if you desire.
I mean, my problem is always I go too far in, so I just want to rewatch the whole thing. But
yeah.
Oh well, it's the same problem I have with Star Wars, but I'll eventually get around to it.
Yeah.
Okay, well I think that was enough on Death Note. Hopefully nobody's depressed or, I don't know, having nasty thoughts after that. We're not going to get into any Dunk of Death talk like last time. That went terribly, so yeah. And if you don't know anything about the Dunk of Death, Bailey, you need to listen to the previous podcast with Arad, because we talked about the Dunk of Death and how it almost drove someone to suicide, and
Jeez.
it was really dark. It's that, I don't know if you know about this, but in the 2000 Olympics, Vince Carter did probably the most incredible dunk ever on this French guy, and he was having a rough go of it at the time. His son had autism.
Actually, oh my gosh.
And his wife had just left him, and the Knicks had just given up on him as a prospect. And he just was not having a good time, and he attempted suicide after it and failed. Yeah, it was dark.
That seems pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, but we're not going to get into that today because we're going to be talking about SpongeBob 30 minutes into the podcast, guys. Whew. So we got some good episodes on the docket here. Just to highlight some really good ones that are coming up, we've got Rockabye Bivalve, that's awesome. We've got Chocolate with Nuts, that's usually a top 10. We have the Krusty Krab training video, that's awesome. Wet Painters, which I'm really high on.
No weenies allowed.
Boo. That one's overrated.
Excuse me?
It's overrated. I said it.
Mermaid. How about Mermaid Man and Barnacle 4?
That's not good.
No, that's Utility Belt. That's a good one. Doing Time is underrated.
Yeah, no, doing time is definitely underrated. Didn't we do doing time? Yeah, no, you're on the one right before. We're starting
Where?
at Snowball Effect. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
whatever.
whatever. Okay. Well, I guess we can get right into things then. So, I hope you were thinking about this. Do you want the A episodes or the B episodes?
Mm, I don't care.
Okay, I guess I'll take the B then.
All
Oh,
right.
okay. So that starts with our first episode then, Snowball Effect. So, Bailey, the floor is yours.
All right. Snowball Effects. This is a full length episode, right?
I always think it is, but no, it's actually just really fast pacing.
It's like 12 minutes. There's only okay. Basically, I think it snows in Bikini Bottom for the first time in a while. There's a lot of snow on the ground, so SpongeBob and Patrick are having a lot of fun building forts and throwing snowballs, and they eventually agitate Squidward because they're loud. And there's a running gag where a snowball enters his window and puts out his fire pit, his fireplace. So he eventually is like, "This can't be fun," and then he's convinced by SpongeBob and Patrick to try. Then he goes like mentally insane because he wants to win the snowball fight, and it ends up with him basically building this giant fort that towers like 100 feet tall, and then he sits there waiting for SpongeBob and Patrick to attack, but they eventually just left. So he's basically sitting there like a stalemate, waiting for something to happen, but nothing happens.
Yeah. And it's a standard episode where Squidward can never win.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Same about running gags. So yeah, the snowball in the fireplace.
Yeah, that was fun.
Um,
That's pretty much it for running gags, aside from Squidward being ridiculous throwing snowballs.
oh my gosh, yeah, you see like there's slow mo shots. Squidward throws snowballs like in and out of Patrick's mouth so fast that they bounce in and out repeatedly. It's kind of gross, actually.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if he had a uvula or something, he'd just be throwing up the entire time.
Yeah, yeah. Not much in that episode. It's funny.
No, it is very funny. It just doesn't
But
have like any running gags or anything.
undermined by the other good episodes.
Oh, definitely.
Why don't you go ahead and explain One Crab's Trash?
Yes. Okay, so this is not one of those episodes we're talking about that undermines the snowball effect. This is honestly one of my least favorite episodes. So basically, the premise here is, as you can imagine based on the title, Mr. Krabs is hosting a yard sale to get rid of all of his trash. And as you can imagine with Mr. Krabs, the only stuff he's selling is actual trash. So, like, he's just selling a bunch of junk that he doesn't want anymore. Stuff like bossy boots, if you remember that, that'd be the kind of thing that Mr. Krabs would be selling here. And one item of particular fascination is the soda drinking hat that SpongeBob notices when he comes to visit the yard sale. And he picks it up, and Mr. Krabs thinks it's a bunch of junk because it's super dirty and it has flies flying around it. So he just gives it to SpongeBob. I think no, it wasn't for free. It was for $10. And the episode continues from there. Mr. Krabs is laughing, and he's like, "Ah, ha, ha, I got you for $10, SpongeBob." And then SpongeBob walks off, and he's drinking from it, and that's obviously disgusting because you don't know how long that soda's been in there. And yeah, that's not good. So after that, a bunch of I guess it would be appraisists or collector people come up to Mr. Krabs and they're like, "Is that the rare soda drinking hat number? What was it, number 4 or something? I don't know." And Mr. Krabs is like, "Why, yes, it was." And they're like, "Wow, that would have been worth thousands of dollars. I'm surprised he just got that." And obviously, Mr. Krabs, seeing the money signs in front of his eyes, wants to get the soda drinking hat back. And the episode basically follows from there with him trying to steal the soda drinking hat from SpongeBob or organize trades or just find any way to get it back. And honestly, it kind of follows like the SpongeBob episode, "The Paper," that we talked about, where SpongeBob gets a piece of paper from Squidward from a bubblegum wrapper, and Squidward's like, never give it back to me or whatever. And SpongeBob just has a ton of fun with it, and then Squidward gets desperate to have some of the fun, so like he just keeps trying to take it from SpongeBob, and eventually he gets it back after trading everything he has. Same thing happens here. Eventually, Mr. Krabs ends up with the soda drinking hat by stealing it from a bunch of really zombies in a graveyard. I'm trying to remember now how it actually got in the graveyard. I remember now. So apparently the soda drinking hat belonged to like some famous guy, and SpongeBob realizes this, and he's like, "Oh, I have to give it back to him." So he goes to a graveyard and digs up the body and puts it on its head, which is kind of dark, but it's SpongeBob, so they get away with it. And yeah, he puts it on his head, and Mr. Krabs comes to go dig it up, and he does that super quickly, and he tries to take the soda drinking hat off of his head. Like, there's this funny scene where it's stuck on his skull, so like Mr. Krabs is like shaking his skull around. He's like, "Let go, Scully!" And then he eventually got it off, and then like all the zombies come up, and becomes a Night of the Living Dead, and he's like, "Don't let him get away!" And they all start using their bones as swords, and Mr. Krabs has to fight his whole way through, and that was obviously a lot of fun, but. Yeah, that's essentially all of it. And we just in terms of running gags from this episode, I can't really think of many, to be honest. The only one I can really think of was that end scene where he's fighting his way through the entire graveyard. That was a lot of fun. They put in the good music on that. And yeah, aside from that, it just wasn't that fun of an episode. As I said, it was kind of a recycled concept. If it was, which may not have been obvious, but I mean, it was. I mean, SpongeBob gets something that he doesn't know is valuable and sees value in it. One of the other characters who gave it to him wants it back because they want to get the value that SpongeBob gets out of it, and they can't. And eventually, through a bunch of hijinks and an unequal trade, they get it back. And then they realize, oh, I wasted my time. I should have just let SpongeBob have it. So yeah, that's essentially one Krabs trash.
Yeah, that was a pretty thorough explanation.
Yes. And to say the least, the episode kind of was trash as well. Okay.
Except wait, did you say the gag about the pretty girl?
No, I didn't. I didn't remember that one
That's
actually.
like that's the best gag.
Oh, what was it?
Well, it's like SpongeBob was wearing the hat, and Mr. Krabs wanted it off his head because it's valuable. So he tried to make up some excuse. He was like, "Hey, SpongeBob, that hat makes you look like a girl." And SpongeBob said, "Am I a pretty girl?" And Mr. Krabs says, "You're beautiful." And the mailman's right there, and he's like,
Oh, that's right. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, the mailman's always doing interesting things in SpongeBob.
Yeah, it's the same. He is a recurring character. The mailman never changes. Is always an orange fish.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's one Krabs trash. So now we have an episode that I don't remember at all, which is why I chose B, as seen on TV. Like, the only thing I remember was, like, this one frame from the episode where SpongeBob has, like, movie star glasses on, and that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what you got?
Alright. What are we on? No, we're on As Seen on TV.
Yes.
Let's see. So I'm just reading the synopsis because I don't remember the song. But this has one of the best songs in SpongeBob. But basically, Mr. Krabs decides. Wait, no. Squidward is directing a commercial for the Krusty Krab.
Oh.
So the Krusty Krab could make more money. And it walks in with the episode starts with Mr. Krabs walking his pet worm to the restaurant, and this is the first time you see Mr. Krabs' pet worm, which is named Mr. Doodles apparently.
Oh.
And so he's mad. He's mad at the production because he thinks it's going to cost a lot. And so he cancels everything, and he's like, "We're going to make our own commercial." And so it's going to start SpongeBob. SpongeBob excited, and Squidward's like, "Fine." And basically, SpongeBob is he's in one still shot. You see like the corner of his head behind the counter.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
He thinks he's all that, and then he's like, yeah. So I mean. Oh, and SpongeBob thinks he's like an entertainer and he's a celebrity, so he quits his job and he's like, he tries to sing and stuff, and the Krusty Krab and the people aren't having it. They just want food, and that's when he sings the iconic striped sweater song.
Oh, that's right. I didn't know that was this
And then
episode.
he basically gets booed so hard, and he's like, "What am I doing?" And then he goes back to serving customers. So yeah, running gags would be the striped sweater song, which is iconic. Old Man Jenkins saying, "I saw you on TV last night," and SpongeBob thinks it's the commercial, but it's really it was like a Raisin Bran commercial,
Yeah.
and he confused the rectangular box with SpongeBob. So not a great episode. Oh yeah, so I remember. Remember SpongeBob was like snapping his fingers in Mr. Krabs' office, and he's like, "I'm out of here,"
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was
and he
funny.
snaps at the door, and Mr. Krabs like insults him and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's like the only time
Oh,
SpongeBob's
he was
copped
like,
an attitude with him.
he said like, "Boy, those fryer fumes must have gone to your head." He says something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. So I'm actually thinking of a different episode then where he got those movie star glasses. I'm guessing that was like a bad season 5 episode or something.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's as seen on TV, and apparently it has more to it than I realized. Okay. So after that we have Can You Spare a Dime? And this is a really fun episode actually.
Yeah.
So essentially, what happens here is it's another battle between Squidward and Mr. Krabs, and as you would imagine, it has to do with Mr. Krabs being cheap and Squidward not having any of it. So what happens here is Mr. Krabs is doing a bunch of accounting in his office, and he's I don't know just typing away on his I don't really know what it was. I was gonna say cash register, but that's not what it is. It's one of those calculators that like spits out a bunch of pieces of paper, and like, you look at the paper and you're like, oh, okay, those are my finances. Well, Mr. Krabs does that, and he realizes that some of the money isn't correct on it, and he realizes that he's missing a dime. So he heads out to the office and he goes screaming at everybody. He's like, "Where's my dime? I need my money!" And like he goes into the cash register and he's trying to find it and he can't find it, and by the end of the episode, we learn it's his special dime, and yeah, special dime. I was making sure I wasn't confusing this with the other episode where Mr. Krabs is cheap about a dime, but yeah, like he's trying to. Yeah, okay, this is the episode I'm thinking it is, and he just rats out Squidward. He's like, "I bet Squidward stole the dime," and Squidward's like, "I didn't steal the dime," and he gets super protective about it. And Mr. Krabs is like, "No, you stole it, you dirty tentacle person," and he basically just starts manhandling Squidward, and Squidward just throws his hat down and leaves, and he's like, "SpongeBob, I will be something great someday. I can be a football player. I can go walk on the moon," and just a bunch of crazy stuff like that. And then we get the iconic scene of SpongeBob reassuring Squidward and saying that they're brothers, but closer. And then he pulls up Squidward's shirt and like it reveals crazy like genetic congenital thing, and it's incredibly disturbing. But we all
Yeah,
know
that
it.
was kind of nasty.
Yeah, and of course it didn't make any sense because they're far apart. But whatever. They apparently ran with that for a later episode where they actually combined their bodies. But okay, they did that. So Squidward goes out and he starts trying to do his thing, and we don't see any of that. All we see is like a minute later where he's in a cardboard box begging for spare change, and he has like a 5 o'clock shadow, or I guess it would be way worse than that. His whole face was basically charred at this point, and he's in an alleyway, and I don't know why SpongeBob was walking down the alleyway, and he sees Squidward, and Squidward's obviously embarrassed, and SpongeBob's like, "Oh, I bet you're a movie star. I see you're growing out that mustache," and he starts guessing what Squidward is, and Squidward just has to admit to himself and to SpongeBob that he's a deadbeat and a loser, and he should have never quit his job. So SpongeBob obviously wants to get Squidward back up on his feet, so he takes him off his feet and he brings him to his pineapple to live with him until he can get his spirits back, as he says. From there, the episode really continues as Squidward just mooching off of SpongeBob, and at first not trying to, and trying to be a good person, which was really nice to see since he had gotten humbled. But then he starts getting moochy and being like, "SpongeBob, can you bring up some extra blankets?" And you get a funny scene where SpongeBob keeps having to walk up and down the house, and eventually just trips down the stairs because it's dark or something. And yeah, you just see SpongeBob start to get worn out because Squidward just gets more and more needy, and eventually gets like a whole buffet in his bed, in SpongeBob's bed, and like SpongeBob has to be in like a French maid outfit, and it gets really ridiculous, and SpongeBob just starts trying to show Squidward that he's being a terrible friend and mooching off of him, and he puts on like this whole puppet show of like this one guy who's not trying to get a job and is just mooching off of his friend, and like you see him give Squidward the newspaper ads for like the different jobs, and you see that Squidward clearly knows he's being a bad person because like he doesn't want to see any of these things. And yeah, eventually SpongeBob just throws him out of the house and like pushes him to the Krusty Krab.
Yeah, it gets really out of hand.
Yeah, and he makes Mr. Krabs apologize to him, and he literally starts mugging Mr. Krabs and like shaking him by the throat, and then after that, Dimey falls out of Mr. Krabs' back pocket, his special dime,
Oh yeah,
and it's just like a
that's
giant lug nut.
that's like one of the few times you ever see SpongeBob lose his cool.
Yeah,
He chokeholds Mr. Krabs in like midair.
yeah, like you can see Mr. Krabs' eyes getting
Like,
wide, and
he was like, "Listen to me, you crustaceous cheapskate."
oh, that was great. And I forget what Squidward's reaction there was, but yeah, I'm sure he couldn't believe it either. And yeah, like it was just a situation where SpongeBob had been worn out for like the past couple months, and yeah,
Yeah,
I mean you couldn't expect anything else. And yeah, Mr. Krabs gets his dime, and that obviously resolves the whole conflict with Squidward, and Squidward
yeah,
returns to his job, gets paid again, shaves, and yeah, that's pretty much the episode right there. So I'm a big fan of this episode. I think it's really fun. It's amazing character development for SpongeBob because you never see him angry and like well, you see him in a tough situation occasionally, but never one that really starts to affect him. And this one really breaks SpongeBob, and you also see Squidward in a bad situation and humbled by it, which is nice to see because Squidward's like a big egotist, and he's like, "Oh, I'm Mr. Cool Guy, and look at me, I can play the clarinet and whatever, and I can sunbathe or I don't know whatever Squidward does at home." But in this episode, he really gets down on himself, and that's nice to see. And he proceeds to be a jerk again, and that reminds us of why Squidward is not the villain in this show, but like an antagonist to SpongeBob. And yeah, I feel like this was just amazing for character development. And it's a good reminder of why, while Mr. Krabs can occasionally be a father figure to SpongeBob and like give some good life lessons, he can also be a complete jerk and just be stubborn for no
yeah.
reason. So yeah.
Really,
That's Can You
yeah.
Spare a Dime? And I'm curious to see where that ends up on my rankings, to be honest, because I'm a big fan of that episode.
Really, okay.
Yeah, much more so than the next episode.
Yeah. Man, you're awfully thorough.
Yes, I am. Well, don't worry, I'll eventually. I'm
Well,
going to
yeah,
slow
don't
down for
worry.
this next one, but yeah.
We'll make up for it once you look at the clock and you're like, oh, it's 9:30 and we've gone through 6 episodes
Yeah, no kidding.
or something. Let's see. Oh, good episode.
Yeah, at least in your opinion.
Probably this is one of the best of the season in my opinion. No weenies allowed.
I wouldn't put it in the top 5.
Top 5 of the season. So I'll put top 3 of the season. Basically, it's about. All right, let's just say it opens up with SpongeBob fighting Sandy. Then Sandy knocks him around because she's better at karate, and then basically there's one of the best SpongeBob gags of all time. And then Sandy kicks him so hard he ends up in the line. He hits the back of someone in the line of the Salty Spittoon, which is like a tough, rough club. It's like probably a pub too, like a bar, and you know what it is. It's like a motorcycle stop kind of thing. And people are constantly being beaten up and kicked out, and it's a bunch of buff dudes in line. And so there's like a security guy or a regulator, a moderator. So, and he says everyone in line,
like a bouncer.
Yeah, he says everyone in line, welcome to the Salty Spittoon. How tough are you? And they have to prove that they're tough to go in.
Yeah, and they have to eat like bowls of nails and.
Yeah, they're like, I had a bowl of nails for breakfast, and he's like, so, and he's like, without milk. It's like, oh, right this way.
Yeah, that's great.
It's funny. That's good. This has a lot of gags in this episode. Sandy joins him in line. Sandy goes in because Sandy rips the tattoo off the dude and flips it upside down, like
oh, that was
defying
crazy.
physics. He had a mom tattoo, and she flipped it so it said "wow," and then just moved him that way. SpongeBob couldn't get in because he couldn't open a bottle of ketchup, but he tried. So he went to a place across the street, Super Weenie Hut Juniors, and the bouncer said it's much more speed if Patrick was there, and so they got harassed by this animatronic robot who just kind of roasted them,
Yeah, pretty
called
much.
them out. And then he came back and they were like, "Oh, why don't we stage a fight where I beat Patrick?" Patrick's like, "Okay." And then, well, so they start the fake fight, and SpongeBob hits Patrick, fake hits Patrick, and calls him Tubby. And Patrick gets offended and actually hits SpongeBob.
Yeah.
And then this Patrick fakes it so well that it looks like an invisible force is like fighting him, and he's eventually beaten back black and blue, and is hurled off into the distance and explodes.
Yep.
Like an explosion, and then he's like, "Wow, you're tough." And then he goes into the salty spittoon, but before he does, he slips on an ice cube at the front entrance, and he like gets bruised up, like he's in like a neck cast or something.
Yeah,
I think he's.
To quote SpongeBob, he got a boo-boo.
Oh yeah. So he's like in the ambulance, and then it's like, oh, well, I don't know how it ends. It's like, oh well, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's basically it. Let's see the gags.
Well, there's the whole franchise of Weenie Hut Juniors. You got Weenie Hut Juniors, you got Super Weenie Hut Juniors, you got Weenie Hut General at the very end.
Oh yeah. You see, like, there's a second SpongeBob that makes an appearance. There's like, all right, so there's another Sponge that looks like SpongeBob who has like a '60s hair, and he's allowed in. And SpongeBob arrives with a rainbow wig on, and then the bouncer just rips the wig off. So it was kind of funny. You see like two SpongeBobs. One of the best gags. SpongeBob jumps and he lands in a family's potato salad.
Oh, that's right. It took
Yes.
3 days.
Yeah, and he's like, quote the fish, "Way to go, buddy. It took us 3 days to make that potato salad." SpongeBob jumps out and he screams, "3 days!"
Oh, that was one of the best.
Yeah, so that's classic.
Yeah.
How about you gotta have muscles on your muscles? You gotta have muscles on your eyeballs.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That dude.
that was creepy.
SpongeBob fakes being a tattoo on someone's arm in order to sneak in. It's like, I can make him dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, so really, it's a really good episode.
Yeah. And honestly,
Oh yeah. All right. What were you saying?
honestly, the problem for this episode is just there's so much competition in season 3. Like, you have to come down to, like, is this episode better than Doing Time? Is it better than The Bully? Like, it's just stiff competition.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be the person that has to worry about that, obviously, with my top, I guess it's like top 200 list at this point, but
How many episodes are there total?
Well, in total, well, I wish I knew. So there's been at least 10 seasons, and let's estimate that
Yeah, we're on season 11.
Okay, yeah, well, okay, how many episodes is it for? Okay, so it's like 20 episodes per season, with it being broken down into A and B, so that's about 40 per season. So if you just do a simple arithmetic there, that's like 400 episodes, so good God. Okay, well, I got my work cut out for me then, but obviously I'm happy to do it. Okay, well,
yeah, I could do that.
no matter how much I pester you two, but whatever.
I'm not making a top 200. I'll make a top 15.
Okay, I'll take a top 15. All right. Well,
But anyways,
yeah,
you have an episode to talk about.
I do. Squilliam returns. So this is obviously Squilliam returning from what many consider the best episode ever, Band Geeks. I'd be really curious to talk to the actual creators of SpongeBob and see if they brought him back because of the success of Band Geeks. But
probably.
Yeah. I have
also, this episode is not memorable at all, in my opinion.
No, I feel like they were trying to make it memorable, and it just wasn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not going to have too much to say on this one. Essentially, what happens is Squidward is again trying to impress Squilliam because that went so well last time. So Squilliam comes and he says, "Oh, I got a 5-star restaurant, and I'm so fancy." And not Mr. Krabs, Squidward's like, "Oh, I got a 5-star restaurant too." And Squilliam's like, "No, you don't. You're a cashier." And like that's how that goes. And eventually Squilliam's like, "Here, I'll visit your 5-star restaurant and I'll see for myself." And Squidward gulps because he realizes he has to turn the Krusty Krab into a 5-star restaurant. So he goes through that whole process. He gets the whole group together. It really follows Band Geeks in a lot of ways, where like he gets a bunch of people from Bikini Bottom here, and like he's at the Krusty Krab, and he's trying to give them roles and like get them to do what people do at a gourmet restaurant. And he gets Patrick to be the coat hanger, and you get the iconic line of "May I take your hat, sir?" So that was a good one.
Yeah.
So that happens, and basically how it goes. Oh, I just read something funny from the wiki where Mr. Krabs justifies his participation in the 5-star restaurant because he has to go to Mr. Krabs and get permission. Mr. Krabs is like, "Yeah, I was on a 5-star restaurant myself," and he says, like, Squidward doesn't ask about what 5-star restaurant Mr. Krabs was possibly a part of in the Navy, but we find out later that Mr. Krabs was part of the SS Diarrhea. So, yeah, that's what he was a part of, and obviously he's a boat ship, and that kind of justifies the food that Mr. Krabs ends up bringing out. So that happens, and for SpongeBob, Squidward gives him a book titled "How to Become a Fancy Waiter in Less Than 20 Minutes," because he has like absolutely no time at all to make the Krusty Krab into an incredible restaurant. So he gives SpongeBob that book, and SpongeBob actually becomes an incredible waiter. So leading up to that, here comes Swilliam, and Swilliam's all impressive, and he's got his unibrow, and he's got a whole crowd of people behind him, because eventually, apparently he brought his whole friend group, I guess, to come try out the restaurant as well. And Squidward thinks that he's going to be clever and picture Squilliam naked so that he can, belittle him, I guess. I never really understood why people picture other people naked. That seems like it would just make you uncomfortable, but he does that, and he's like, "Oh no, he's hot!" And that was fun. Obviously, he's wearing underwear and all that, and it's polka dotted for some reason. I'm looking at a picture of that sexy, sexy man right there. But yeah, that happens. So eventually, Squilliam walks in, and it's the same thing as Band Geeks. Squidward expects the restaurant to be in ruins because just before he walked out, it was a madhouse, and everyone was running everywhere, and yeah. But SpongeBob comes out, and he looks like an amazing French waiter, and he's got a mustache and everything, and he's doing a great job, and he basically does everything. And there's like this one scene where he just is like, yeah, I'm looking at it now. There's like 6 hands at once, and like he's cutting the meat, and he's brushing Squilliam's hair, and he's like, he also is polishing it, and he's like fixing his unibrow, and he's also massaging his back, and like all the hands come up at the very end. He's like, "You're welcome," and that just happens. And SpongeBob's apparently a fantastic waiter. And then when Squidward eventually goes back to talk to him, it turns out that SpongeBob knows absolutely nothing anymore. He got rid of everything in his brain except for the stuff that had to do with being an amazing waiter, because apparently the first advice in the book was clear your mind. And then that cuts to a scene of his mind being personified of just dumping everything in the trash from a bunch of filing cabinets. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's how it goes. And eventually SpongeBob is asked a question by Squilliam of "What is your name?" And SpongeBob doesn't know his name anymore, and Squidward doesn't realize what's going on, so he's, "Come on, SpongeBob, tell him your name." And like you cut to a scene of SpongeBob's mind again being like, "What's his name? What's his name?" And like everyone's running around and like trying to find his name, and like check on a computer, and the computer explodes, and everyone's going through the filing cabinet, and everyone's freaking out, and they're like, "We don't know his name!" And SpongeBob eventually just snaps, and you see his brain crack in half, and he just loses his mind and goes everywhere and starts attacking everyone and running around like a crazy person and ruins everything. And yeah, that's essentially how that goes. And Mr. Krabs comes out and he's like, "Look out, the monster's coming!" And like this giant like meat monster just comes out and starts scaring everyone, and everyone runs out. And yeah, that's pretty much how it ends. And Squilliam's like, "Well, Squidward, I'm waiting." And Squidward has to admit to being a cashier, and Squilliam initially pretends to be sympathetic to him, and then he's like, "Nope, I'm actually just gonna belittle you, and you're a cashier, and have fun. You're a stinky, Krusty Krab," and then he leaves, and that's pretty much all of the episode. So just to touch on a couple of the good gags that I didn't already mention. So obviously we have the famous "World's Smallest Violin," where Squidward is going in to ask Mr. Krabs for help. Mr. Krabs doesn't care. He's like, "Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play for you a little song in the world's smallest violin." And then you get the violin, and Squidward's like, "Mr. Krabs, this is serious." It's like, I know, this is really the world's smallest violin. And yeah, but aside from that, I think I touched on almost everything else. And more. Okay. Did you like this episode?
Yeah, I got like mixed opinions on it, I guess. Let me just give me a second here.
Yeah. You can tell me when you leave.
No, I didn't leave.
Oh, sorry.
I was just listening. Yeah, I didn't. Again, it wasn't memorable for me. Like, if you bring it up, I'll be like, oh yeah, that one, but I don't remember, much about it other than the gag of the many SpongeBob's and SpongeBob's own brain doing work for him.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, not to mention the world's smallest violin.
Oh, that too. So, like a 6 out of 10 episode.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, season 3 in general, you
it gets hit and miss.
Well, you get better writing, probably, and more character development and like more deeper writing. But sometimes like the gags can be off, or you can have like a misfire. But when like season 3's episodes are probably better than season 2's best episodes, usually, sometimes.
Yeah,
it depends.
It's just season 2 is more consistent.
I mean, when you look at like Chocolate with Nuts, I mean, that's a great episode, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that one's actually really interesting because in recent years that's really taken off on the charts. Like nobody ever had it in their top 10s, but when I look now, like everybody does. And
yeah.
I've seen a couple that have it as number 1, which is a little silly, but it's a fantastic episode.
Yeah, I see a lot of band geeks as number 1.
I mean, yeah.
For obvious reasons. All right, here we go. We got Crab Board. I'm gonna I've decided to save time. The synopsises are long, but I'm gonna read like pieces of them basically.
Yeah.
As I speak, just to save time.
Okay.
All right, to open this, SpongeBob and Gary watch a horror movie one night called Night with the Robot, which is about robots taking over the world. SpongeBob gets like superstitious so it freaks SpongeBob out. The next day, SpongeBob goes to work the next day. He thinks robots are everywhere. Like he imagined that a stack of potatoes was a robot and stuff like that. Oh yeah, there's a gag where the grill fryer turns on. The deep fryer has a red light that turns on. It makes a beep, and SpongeBob throws up his hands in fear and screams, "I surrender."
Yeah, that was good.
So, oh yeah, all right. So SpongeBob thinks Mr. Krabs is a robot because he's dancing oddly. Does a lot of things that SpongeBob takes the wrong way. He was doing like the robot dance to Electric Zoo, which is one of the best SpongeBob songs. It's kind of a meme.
Oh, I'll pull that up actually.
Yeah.
I'll just inject it again when you don't expect it, just like I did for Idiot Box.
Mr. Krabs said things like, "Oh, I feel recharged," and SpongeBob was like, "Yeah, I really don't like this." So he thinks Mr. Krabs is an imposter. He somehow convinces Squidward. Let's see. Things like, if you hug Mr. Krabs, he won't be happy. Like, no emotion. Like a robot. Mr. Krabs accidentally got splashed with salt in his eyes, and they turned red, which looks like a robot. So both of them tied him up.
Yep.
And so I think to prove that he had emotion, to make sure he's not a robot, they destroyed all his belongings, like money with a baseball bat, like expensive things. But they weren't actually expensive. They were like $14.95 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's your Electric Zoo.
Yeah, that's all it is. And then you see basically, and that's it. They all realized what they did was stupid, and yeah.
Hmm.
basically.
And this episode isn't to be mistaken with Imitation Crabs, where Plankton comes in and he's basically Crabborg, not to be mistaken with the title of this episode, and just pretends to be Mr. Krabs, but he's actually a robot. This is completely different, and you can remember that based on SpongeBob watching the scary movie at the beginning, that there's nothing like that in the other episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's Crabborg. Obviously, I don't like that episode as much as the other Robot Crabs one, but it's still interesting. It's a good concept.
I liked how SpongeBob. This is like the first time SpongeBob's convinced Squidward that something is actually like happening. Something Squidward kind of fell for something really stupid for the first time.
Yeah, it was a nice take on the, not nice take, it was a good contrast with the Graveyard Shift episode where Squidward convinces SpongeBob that, like, there's a masked murderer coming out to kill them with a spatula.
Yeah, it was like a role change.
Yep. Okay. Well,
So that's it. That's it for this episode.
okay,
For
well,
that episode, not this episode of the podcast.
yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately, this next episode is one that cannot be shrunk, so honestly, it probably has the most plot depth of almost any episode there is in SpongeBob,
Let's see.
and that's Rockabye Bivalve.
Actually, it can kind of be shrunk.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, I just watched it today, but go ahead.
Okay.
Trust me, if you miss anything important, I remember a lot of it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm definitely gonna get your opinion on it since you just watched it. But essentially, what happens? Actually, if you just watched it, do you want to talk about it? That might work better. I could just take the next one.
That's possible.
Yeah, I think that might be a better idea because I think I know more about wet painters, anyways.
Okay, it's a good idea.
All right, yeah, let's do that.
Dog.
Yeah, we probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but Bailey does have a dog in the room.
You start explaining it. I'm gonna have to take a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So
separate the dog and the cat.
Okay. So what happens in Rockabye Bivalve is basically the show decides it wants to make a basically just talk about what it'd be like if they were parents in SpongeBob. So how they decide to explore this topic is they make Patrick the father and SpongeBob the mother, and they give him a child, which is a clam, as you would expect based on the title Bivalve, and they just go about raising it, and the show explores what it would be like if they had a bunch of parents in the show. So they have Patrick coming home from work and SpongeBob doing all the cleaning in the house, and they just go through the standard Western matriarchal and patriarchal roles. And they have Patrick in the den watching baseball, and he's like, "Oh, that guy got hit by a coconut," and they keep doing that. That's a running gag in the show. And they have one awesome scene where they're walking the clam in the park, and they have it in like a baby carriage, and they show these two fish looking at them, and like it shows like sponge plus sea star equals clam, and there's a question mark, and that's always interesting. You see that in any of the when SpongeBob gets dirty compilations. Obviously, that's not actually dirty, but they have to go for something. They can't have everything just being like a SpongeBob inflating a condom. So yeah, that's how that goes. Eventually, by the end of the show, they have to give up the clam because you don't see it in later episodes, and it just happens when the clam flies away, and they're supposed to be proud parents, and it's like, oh, the clam's leaving the nest and all that. So that's how that goes. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else notable about this episode. Let's see. So, I mean, aside from SpongeBob just taking on like a ton of different motherly roles at once and just doing like the same thing that he did in the Squilliam Returns video episode where he has like 6 hands at once. He's like making pancakes and he's vacuuming the floor and he's got a whole maid get up again from that earlier episode. And yeah, it's definitely an interesting episode to see how the show explores it, but as you could guess, based on the fact that even in the later seasons, they didn't come back to the whole mother-father things, that it didn't have that much depth as a concept. Oh, and there was one joke where they had to change the clam's diaper, and that's always fun, because, whenever you have parents in the room, you want to change their diaper. That's always funny, and like a funny iteration of that I can think of was Ice Age, the first movie where crap, what's his name? The sloth guy. I forget what his name is because it wasn't that memorable of a movie, but he's changing the Eskimo's diaper and like he's waving it around everywhere. It's like, oh, it's really dirty. Here, you want it? And Manny's like, no, I don't want it. And he's waving it all over the place. And it was a good scene if anyone knows what I'm talking about. But I don't think anyone's actually watched the first Ice Age movie. I think everyone just watched the second one, the Meltdown, and the Dawn of the Dinosaurs one. If you really got into the series late. I was unfortunate enough to have watched that one. It was horrible. I had to deal with my brothers talking about Egbert for like honestly weeks. It's incredibly annoying, but yeah, bad movie. And now I'm getting on a tangent, but yeah, this was an interesting episode, and I'm kind of surprised I didn't have more to say about it, to be honest. So Bailey, you get that dog out of the room, or at least separated from the cat.
He's separated. Where is he? He's just lying here. Yeah, he's good.
Okay.
For right now.
Great. So do you have anything to add on this episode?
No, you got everything.
Okay, cool.
It's just like, yeah.
Alright, great.
Nothing crazy. Let's see what do we have here?
You got Wet Painters, which is one of my favorite episodes, so you better do it justice.
It's a good episode. I mean, it's got like a top 20 Spongebob moment. You know, something classic. Alright, let's see. Let's see. Mr. Krabs needs his house painted. Let's see. Alright, so basically SpongeBob and Patrick end up like destroying parts of the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs is like, alright, you're gonna paint my house to make up for it. It's like a special secret mission. That's what he tells them, but it's just to make sure they don't like screw up. And he said if you get a drop of it on anything except his walls, that he will cut off their butts and frame them above his fireplace, which terrifies them. So they go to his house and they start painting, and his house is pretty drab and gray, and so they're painting everything white. So they get kind of worried because they can't screw up because they'll notice because it's white paint. And then Patrick just starts blowing like giant bubbles, and he blows 2 giant bubbles, and it turns into this huge bubble, and he keeps. All right, there's a gag where he puts an air hose, an air pump inside in the bubble and starts filling it with air, which is not how bubbles work, but
yeah,
you know. And he's like, Patrick, no. And SpongeBob's pressed against the wall by the bubble, and the bubble pops. And surprisingly, every wall and ceiling and floor is perfectly covered with white paint, except there's a tiny, tiny white stain on Mr. Krabs' first dollar. And so they're freaking out because their butts are going to get, messed off, cut off, and framed. So they think of ways to remove it, and they're like, they're using a bunch of conventional ways. And Patrick's like, "Stop! We have technology." And he picks up a computer, and he slams it on the dollar bill over and over.
Yeah, it was great.
And so, well, they end up. Patrick smears the paint over the dollar bill in accident. SpongeBob like loses his mind, and so what is it? They end up reframing it because it was framed. Think of a dollar bill covered in white paint. They take a green crayon and they draw 2 money signs on the other side, and they put a smiley face in the middle and frame it back up.
Yep. And like the whole thing is they're trying to hide it from Mr. Krabs when he walks back in and like stand in front of it and whatnot. Because they know they did something wrong. They don't want him to see it. They don't believe in Patrick's handiwork and artistic representation of a dollar.
Mr. Krabs comes home and he's like, all right, everything looks really nice. And he's like, let me look at my first dollar. And it's like covered up. And he's like, why are you doing that? And he's like, oh no, it's covered. And they're worried about their butts. And Mr. Krabs says, oh, it's a joke. The paint comes off with saliva. And he licks off the paint. And he starts laughing. And SpongeBob and Patrick leave in anger because they're like, oh, I thought this was a serious mission. So they storm out. Mr. Krabs keeps laughing so hard that he's spitting a lot. And so he melts all the paint off his walls. And then he's like, oh, I need to learn how to say it, not spray it. And that's how the episode ends.
Yeah. And this is one of my favorite episodes because I've always been one of those. I was always one of those kids that got a kick out of those really intense situations that like aren't actually intense. So like that whole thing with
Yeah.
like Patrick and the bubble, that was awesome, and that was great for that. I still get a kick out of that, but yeah, it's a really fun episode. It has a ton of gags, and it's like the whole premise is ridiculous. So and when it just gets more and more ridiculous as it goes, that's when you get the best SpongeBob episodes. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a really fun episode. And if any of you haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a while, you might want to go check it out. I know I'm putting it on my list for episodes I got to check out after I finish this recording because yeah, it's a good episode.
Yes, it is.
And speaking of good episodes,
Also remember. Oh, sorry.
oh, no, don't
I
worry
was
about
just
it.
gonna say. Also remember, sadly, SpongeBob. If it was on Netflix, that'd be a gold mine for them. But somehow Hulu outbought them for it. Somehow.
Yeah, it's also on
But
Amazon Prime for anyone that's curious.
oh,
But
really?
yeah, that's where I always watch it.
Interesting. Well, I don't think I have Amazon. I have a Prime account, but I think it's different. You can't like Prime TV is like extra or something. Or, yeah, I
Oh,
don't
is it?
know.
Hmm. I didn't think I
But you
had
can
that.
also use like any kids cartoon website.
Yeah.
Pirating.
Uh, I mean, I'm one to talk. I always pirate anime, but still,
Yeah.
whatever. I guess we
I
don't.
still haven't found a good site for Naruto Shippuden though.
Yeah. Check out Kiss Anime. It's yeah. I think it's by the same company, but it works really well. I haven't had any situations where I haven't been able to get something.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pain in the butt to deal with, like all the Russian ads or like them trying to sneak you onto like some creepy websites that's trying to get you to call a number that'll probably trigger some phishing scam. But you know, if you're willing to get past that, it's great. Okay, so
Okay.
next we have one of the most iconic SpongeBob episodes, the Krusty Krab training video. So, in terms of beat by beat action, this episode is probably the most dense in terms of how many episodes and actions it gets crammed into 11 minutes. So, I'm just going to go through the whole 7-point plan here that occurs. Basically, the premise behind this is the show is showing you the Krusty Krab training video that Mr. Krabs shows all new employees, and he uses SpongeBob as an example throughout it. So it just goes through that, and the 7 different points are from humble beginnings, which profiles Mr. Krabs' childhood, the Krusty Krab today, training, personal hygiene, your workstation, interfacing with your boss, and emergency situations. And then obviously it ends with the Krabby Patty formula. So the humble beginnings one is really fun because it portrays Mr. Krabs as like this big war veteran and how he saved up a ton of money to open up his own restaurant, and it shows the Krusty Krab like I don't know 20 years before it ever shows up on the show, and that's really fun to see, obviously, because you know they don't take it seriously at all, which is awesome. And then after that, they go to the Krusty Krab today, so they just talk about how like what life at the Krusty Krab is like currently, and how SpongeBob is one of the best employees, and like how you should always pay attention to how SpongeBob does things and not be a Squidward. And that's one of the recurring things as you go, and like, they just use Squidward as if it's like a bad word, and which is always something I love in shows when they have like one of the characters' names be an insult. So that's always awesome. So that becomes a recurring joke. And then after that, it goes into training and what the new employee should do and what the new employee shouldn't do. And you get the helpful acronym POOP. And I forget what the acronym stands for, actually. Do you remember what POOP stands for?
Yeah, it's people order our patties.
Okay, that's right. Oh, POOP. Okay. So, and yeah, I mean, people order our patties, and the narrator is just like, okay, what are the people coming to the Krusty Krab for? Are they coming for mattresses? Are they? That was one of the things. And then they do something else, and he's like, no, the patties. And then SpongeBob's like, oh, poop, and then it just goes through that whole gist, and then you get into personal hygiene. So you get to see everyone in the bathroom, and that's fun. And SpongeBob's washing his hands, and the narrator's like, "Are you washing them hard enough?" And SpongeBob just starts grinding his hands over the water. He's like, "Harder, harder!" And then SpongeBob just raises his hands up when the narrator wants to see how he did. And he's like, look at those hands, they're squeaky clean, and they've just completely disappeared at this point. And he's like, okay, let's check in on the other stations now. And like the camera zooms out, and like there's this one bathroom stall that's closed. And I forget if SpongeBob kicks it open or it just rolls open. Like it backs up, and then like the trombone starts, and it's like, oh, look at that! Don't be a Squidward. And Squidward's just on the bathroom, and it's like pants are down, and he's has a newspaper on his face, and he's sleeping, and he just wakes up. He's like, well, oh, and then like he like shuts the door, and he's like super embarrassed, and that was a lot of fun. And after that, you get the workstation, and I mean that's pretty self-explanatory. They're in the kitchen, SpongeBob showing off his workstation, and then they zoom out to Squidward, and you see Squidward lousying around at his workstation. He falls over, and then they break out the trombone again. I really like that trombone. That was great. Then after that, you get interfacing with your boss, which is the shortest segment, where all that happens is SpongeBob says, "Hey, Mr. Krabs, can I get a raise?" And Mr. Krabs says no, and SpongeBob gives a thumbs up to the camera, and that's it. And then for emergency situation, obviously it's going to be dealing with Plankton, and it just goes through a whole scene of Plankton stealing the Krabby Patty, and it's like, okay, SpongeBob, what are you going to do? And SpongeBob just starts running and screaming and being like, oh no, we're going to lose. And then Mr. Krabs just walks out and picks up Plankton, and he's like, you lose, and just throws him out of the Krusty Krab, as you do. And yeah, after that, it just goes into SpongeBob finally learning the Krabby Patty formula, which he's been trying to find out about for this entire episode at this point, asking, like, can I learn the Krabby Patty formula now? And the narrator keeps saying no. And now he's finally going to get to learn it, and you get the iconic song of da 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 da
You should play that.
yeah, I should. I'll pull that up. And yeah, it just builds and builds, and eventually gets to SpongeBob finally learning the Krabby Patty formula. And ever the tease, Nickelodeon, they just cut out right before SpongeBob's finally going to learn the Krabby Patty formula.
Yeah, absolutely. The secret formula is in the episode. It just cuts to a black screen.
Yeah,
I thought the first time I saw that I was 8 or 9. I was like, I thought it was an error, so I kept rewinding it, like, what's going on? But I realized, oh, that's the end of the episode, and I was upset.
Yeah, and I think everyone remembers what like the actual seeing that the first time, because like the music builds and it gets super intense, and you're like, oh my god, he's actually gonna learn it. And SpongeBob starts licking the picture of the Krabby Patty, and
Yeah.
okay,
Sounds like a lot of.
hoopla! Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't explain that gag. You just have to watch it.
yeah, and the guy just gets a brick thrown at his head.
You see a fish get hit with a brick. That's pretty violent.
Yeah, that was pretty violent. Here, let's see if this works. This is gonna be like 30 seconds long. Hopefully, it actually is what the title says it is. It's not gonna be like one of those stupid meme ones, and I don't know, like LL Cool J is gonna pop up or something.
What?
Preparing the Krabby Patty!
Oh man, it's so good.
Classic.
Yeah, I love the That's awesome.
Yeah, you gotta love. I love like third-party characters in SpongeBob.
Oh yeah, they're amazing.
Like a narrator, or like they use actual film footage or humans.
Yeah.
In a scene, like superimposed over, stuff like that. I love that stuff.
Or even like the French narrator, whenever they bring him in and like he's doing an opening.
Good looking.
Oh, that's always great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Krusty Krab training video. And
Yes.
next you have probably the worst episode, and one that I've actually seen a lot of people rank as the worst pre-movie episode in SpongeBob, Party Pooper Pants.
Alright, so I have to do a full special.
Yeah, good luck.
Jeez, I don't remember this thing.
Neither do I. That's how bad it is. Should have burned a hole in my memory, I guess, but it didn't. It wasn't even memorable.
We could skip it.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Say,
Here, I guess we can take it
so
together.
it's Patchy the Pirate. Yeah, I don't remember any of this.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Here, I'll give it a shot, because I'm sure you remember Chocolate with Nuts.
I do.
Okay, here, how about this? How about we skip this for a second so I can read through the synopsis and you do
I mean,
Chocolate?
honestly, we're almost at the point, like, if it's not good, we kind of just pass it.
No, we gotta at least go up to the movie.
When is the movie?
End of season 3.
Oh, really? Oh, that's when it's set. Yeah, it's like the last good thing of SpongeBob.
Yeah. Okay.
You like the movie, right?
I do. I'm trying to figure out how I should rank it in terms of the other episodes. I haven't figured that out yet. I'm thinking of just breaking it into 4 parts and then ranking it based on that, like I did for
You can't do that.
for the Star Wars: The Clone Wars series, but obviously that doesn't completely work. But yeah, it's a good movie. Still haven't seen the second movie though.
Yeah, me neither. I doubt it's good.
Okay, so
because it's live action.
So you want to do Chocolate with Nuts?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, I'll do Party Pooper after you do that one.
Alright, it's a classic episode. So basically SpongeBob's he's reading a fancy magazine called Fancy Living Digest. He sees all these rich people and he's like, I want to have money. So he's like, hey Patrick, let's do that. And it's like, how do you make money? And you become a salesman. And so what they do, they decide to sell chocolate because everyone loves chocolate, door to door, and they realize their tactics. Like example, Patrick opening the door and saying tactics. So that's what they have to do, and they're like, oh, let's be like other salesmen and lie and work for. And so they do that, and they sell a lot of chocolate. And they meet some strange people along the way, like this guy who's obsessed with chocolate, and this old, like, dried out woman is nasty.
Yeah.
Kind of scared me as a kid, and a con man who pretends all his bones are broken to make money.
Yeah, that guy was
money.
sketchy.
So. Yeah, he was funny. So yeah, we'll go into that in a second. So yeah, and so they eventually end up. What was it? So what they do? They got money. That's right. So they got a bunch of money.
Yeah, because like the one guy who was following them the entire time, he was just trying to buy their chocolate, and they were afraid of him the entire time. They thought he was trying to kill them or something. But no, he just wanted to buy chocolate.
But how do they sold a bunch of chocolate before him? So where did that money go?
No, not
then they give it to the con man.
No, they really didn't sell any money. They sold like one chocolate bar before that, and like they couldn't sell their chocolate. That was the problem. And, like there was this one scene where Patrick's pants were just full of chocolate, and
oh yeah. I just thought they were saying things like, "Oh, your hair will grow back." They said something like that.
Yeah, they did have some of that. That's right. But I don't think they were making that much money from it.
I think they bought what they did. They spent all their money they originally earned on the bags they used to hold the chocolate. They sold it to the con man.
Oh yeah, that's right. And it just became a whole fractal system.
So yeah, this crazy madman who's been chasing them caught up with them, and he's like, "Now that I got you right where I want you, I want to buy all your chocolate."
Yeah.
So and then they scared him so much. Patrick poops out a load of chocolate bars, and then on top he poops out a Hershey Kiss.
Yeah, just for no reason.
Was a good reference. So, yeah, that's basically it. And then they just have a bunch of money at the end.
Yeah. Gosh, are you torturing that dog?
No, I'm gonna make him shut up.
Okay. And yeah, basically the episode ends with Squidward going off to a fancy restaurant and finding out that SpongeBob and Patrick had rented it out with those 2 creepy old ladies.
Yes. So, alright, go ahead and talk about running gags.
Yeah. So in terms of the running gags from this episode, you have the fractal of pouches of chocolate that SpongeBob and Patrick buy from the con man. So that was interesting, obviously, and gets into the predicted scene where SpongeBob is trying to get out a chocolate bar for this one lady who wants to buy one because she's some helpful old lady. or not really old. She's like a middle-aged person, like a standard mom age, and like she's trying to buy something from them, and SpongeBob keeps opening bags and unzipping them, and like it just reveals another bag. It's like the standard thing where like you have a present under the Christmas tree or something, like you open it up and there's another present inside, and you just keep doing it, and it just becomes a Russian nesting doll, and yeah, that's always fun. And then aside from that, there's the con man, and we could talk about the con man for a while. He's really dark, and like he wins.
Like, I have glass skin and pink bone.
Yeah, and like he does not care.
Every morning I break my arms, and every night I break my legs. Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, and like the biggest thing is that like the show doesn't bring him to justice or anything. It's just like, nope, he's just a con man, and he makes a lot of money, and that's it.
What? What are they selling?
Oh, that was a good impression.
They're selling chocolate. Chocolate.
That was pretty good.
That's like, it basically, this death, think of like a shriveled up worm, but I guess it's supposed to be a fish that's just really old.
Yeah, it just looks like a husk of a person.
Think of like, just think of a dried up earthworm, like after when the sun's out.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like, in a wheelchair. But she has no arms, which makes no sense, but it's like.
Oh yeah, good point.
Ma, they're selling chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently, like, she's living with her daughter who just wants her to die. And, like, eventually...
Yeah.
And eventually the mom's like, I know you just want me to die, don't you? Because, like, SpongeBob and Patrick are promising that the chocolate will grant wishes, and, like, they're promising that it'll make her young again, and, like, basically how they convince her to buy the chocolate is they say if you rub it all over your skin, it'll make you young, and, like, the daughter's like, no, because she wants her to die, and... Yeah.
I hate you. They sell chocolate, and she's like, I hate you. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. You get to see a bunch of side characters in SpongeBob. Most you don't see again, but you do see the old lady again, not the shriveled up lady, but the daughter. You do see her.
Yeah, and you get the guy with the bubbling fat. That was interesting.
Oh my God. You can keep that for $10.
I'll take 2.
Also, you do see the guy who chases him for the chocolate. You see him a lot in the show.
Yeah, he's like the My Leg guy.
No, that's not him.
No, I know. I'm saying like in terms of how much he shows up.
Yes, he's like the My Leg guy. Correct.
Yeah, I wish we remembered his name, but whatever. Actually, I can probably find that. Is it Norton?
Tell you right now.
Norton? Tom?
His name is. I don't think it could be Norton.
Yeah. Here, let me click on the hyperlinks here. Is this?
No, Norton is the mailman.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I guess we could be fancy. Maybe it's No, Francis is the old person. Maybe it's.
I love how.
It's Tom. Okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
The con man's name is Con Man.
Oh wow! So Tom's actually the same guy that was who got the pizza at the end of Pizza Delivery.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
No, I didn't realize that was the same guy.
I mean, it's just because he's in a lot of episodes.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I guess we can. Do they have like a list of episodes he was in? That could be interesting to look at.
Probably, but
yeah, I'm not seeing anything on here that I can easily find. Okay, well, it's a really good episode.
He's in squeaky boots because he goes to the register and he's like, "Excuse me, do you have any?" And then it squeaks. He's hallucinating. Krabs is, but
he was in Graveyard Shift as well.
And he's in April Fools because he's like, "What did you do to my drink?"
Oh yeah. Oh.
He's kind of a lunatic. He has a really short temper.
He does, yeah. I guess that came up with him really wanting the chocolate, but yeah, he's a good character.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's Chocolate with Nuts, and to say the least, it was nuts. Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys were able to bear that terrible pun. So, he's actually in the next episode as well. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, he is. He got invited to the party.
What episode would that be?
Party Pooper Pants. He was one of the guys who was super late.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Okay, so here, I was reading over the synopsis while Bailey gave his excellent review, so basically what happens in this episode is, it's as bad as I remembered. So, essentially how this goes is SpongeBob, crap, I forgot the lead-in. I always forget the lead-in. I don't know. Okay, so SpongeBob's throwing a party for some reason. I don't really remember why. So it shows SpongeBob in. Oh, that's right. He was in the bargain mart, and like he sees a plan your own party kit, and I guess he sees that in between buying groceries or something, and he wants to throw a party because of that. So he throws a party, and it says to only bring your closest friends apparently on the box, and he doesn't remotely do that. He brings like the entire Bikini Bottom. So yeah, that's what he does. And throughout the episode, we get interludes of Patchy throwing a party and doing stuff like giving dancing lessons and trying to flirt with this mermaid. And yeah, and that's always interesting. And SpongeBob, as he's throwing the party, he just becomes more and more of a control freak, which is something I certainly can relate to. And yeah, he just becomes a horrible party host, and he tries to control everything that people do. And like apparently the first person to arrive was late for the party, and SpongeBob thought no one was going to come. And it's Patrick, and Patrick's just randomly wearing a tie for no reason. And that was great to see. And SpongeBob just starts handing out topic cards to everybody, and has like a whole master schedule of what everyone's going to do at the party because he thinks he can control everyone. And when everyone starts having fun, it just throws a wrench into SpongeBob's plan, and he starts losing his mind. And yeah, everyone just starts hanging out with each other. And this is one of those episodes where you start to see characters that never interact with each other intermingling. You see Sandy and Mr. Krabs talking. You see Larry talking to somebody that I don't remember. You see Patrick talking with Mrs. Puff for quite a while. That's a lot of fun. And yeah, it was a really good episode in that regard, but that's pretty much the only good good thing here, because this is probably the worst episode for SpongeBob pre-movie. Obviously, it gets way worse when it turns into torture porn for Squidward, but yeah.
What?
I mean, what would you call it? Like,
I'm sorry, I don't remember this. Is this in this special?
No, not this episode. I'm talking about way past the movie. Wait, the episode I have in...
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like the one I have in mind is like that spray bottle that made Squidward giant, and he just becomes like a giant monster and is running around the city in SpongeBob.
Oh, I was thinking of like the
or the Splinter episode that works too.
Yeah, I was thinking of like when it was for House Fancy and they're moving the couch and the couch is on Squidward's foot and it rips off his toenail.
Oh Christ!
Remember that?
I have a picture of it in my mind. Yeah, it was a bad toenail too. It wasn't even like a good toenail. It was getting ripped off.
Honestly, it's like you see more. It like literally rips the whole pink part of the toe, like all the cartilage.
Oh yeah.
Like, Jesus.
It sucks too because it was a good it was one of the good episodes from after the movie, but yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But...
Okay, well back to House Fancy. SpongeBob
what?
Yeah, like there's only a little
House
bit.
Party.
Yeah. So SpongeBob eventually gets sick of it, and he leaves the house to like get some fresh air and not lose his mind. He's like, I'm gonna step out for 5 minutes and let's have nobody do anything. And obviously everyone just starts dancing and turns on the music, and SpongeBob thinks he's doing an amazing job for some reason, which made absolutely no sense because the entire time in the house he thought he was doing a horrible job. So I don't know where that leap in logic came from, but he's doing that, and he forgets to keep the door unlocked, and he locks himself out of his house. And he's like, "Oh, I'll get the spare key," and there's no spare key, so he's locked out of his house, and he's trying to get in, and he just starts trying to break into his house. And he's wearing a bunny costume. I don't remember why he's wearing a bunny costume. And eventually the police drive up, and they're like, hey, man, what are you doing? You're breaking into someone's house? He's like, no, this is my house. And the officers are like, what are you doing here? Why are you outside? And SpongeBob's like, oh, I'm throwing a house party. And the officers just drive off, and they're like, oh, okay, have fun. And then they drive back, and they're like, hey, hang on a second. You didn't invite me, did you? And like SpongeBob's like, no, and then he gets taken off to jail for some reason. So that happens. And honestly, this is a problem in SpongeBob where if the writers are being weird and it's working, it works really well. But if the episode's going bad and they start getting weird, it just becomes a detriment, and like it just becomes a point that you can give against the episode. So that's something that happens here. And eventually SpongeBob comes back after being in jail for a night, and he's like, oh, I'm glad that's over. And he comes back to the house, and he realizes he has a different house key, a spare house key that's under the mattress. and he just has a conniption because he realizes he could have gotten in the house anyways, and he comes back in and everyone's gone. Obviously, the party's over, and SpongeBob's like, "Oh, I missed everything," and then Patrick comes up, pats him on the shoulders, like, "Hey, awesome party last night, SpongeBob. You did a good job." And he's like, "Are we on for next week?" And then it cuts to black after that, and then obviously you have Patchy the pirate still giving his various interludes. I always mix up the ones that happen in this episode with Shanghai, so I'm not even going to try to explain those, but yeah. Okay, so that's Party Pooper Pants, and yeah, do you have any other thoughts on this episode to jog any memories?
No, I don't remember it, and I don't really care about it.
Yeah, this was by far the worst 30-minute episode.
Yeah, so, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm thinking of all the other ones, they're all better.
Yeah, are you going to say Christmas Who?
No, that's good. That's good. I like that.
Okay, good.
Was SB129
We,
a half hour? Was that a full?
Dang it, yeah, you're right. We always think it's a 30 minutes. I don't remember if we're wrong about that.
Actually, no, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think it's just fast pacing.
Yeah.
Let me see. 11:32. Yeah, no, it's short somehow. God, that was about the fastest pacing ever in that show.
Surprising. Yeah. Okay. What's the next one? New Student Starfish.
Oh, this episode's great. Wait, no, actually, it's Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5.
This is a good episode. It's got some gags. Some funny things that fans like.
No, it is good. I just like the movie episode better. It's like Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6.
Oh yeah. I don't know about that one. Alright, whatever. Alright. Basically, SpongeBob's going to boating school, and Patrick's like, "You want to go jellyfishing?" SpongeBob says, "No, boating school." And then Patrick's like, oh, he's sad because he doesn't do anything when SpongeBob's at school. So SpongeBob's like, "You can come." That's not how education works, but whatever. So they arrive at school at 6:20, and class starts at 9, and SpongeBob's like, "You don't want to be late for being early," basically. And he shows them around, and it's like, there's a good noodle board, which is like a gold star board. If you do something nice, you get a gold star. And there's an egg in the corner named Roger. He has a little light bulb over him for warmth. So yeah. So class starts at 9 eventually, and everyone walks in, and Miss Puff walks in. It's like, we have a new student, and she asked what Patrick's name is, and he is super nervous, and he says 24.
Yep.
And the whole class bursts into laughter. And yeah. And SpongeBob and Patrick are giggling later in class that he's got something funnier than 24, and SpongeBob says 25, and they laugh again. Miss Puff says, "Pay attention," and
here, I'll actually play that. That's a good gag. And
Patrick starts.
I'm actually getting ambitious with what I'm playing on here, but I'll give it a shot.
It's fine. And then Patrick starts to not like Mrs. Puff.
Here, yeah. Sorry.
All right, go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, usually it takes me a little while to queue it up, but I got this one fast.
24.
Patrick,
What?
I thought of something funnier than 24.
Let me hear it.
25.
Well,
Classic.
yeah, I don't know what was up with those laughs, but yeah.
Yeah, so basically, after that, Patrick doesn't really like Miss Puff because she's kind of strict, and he draws a photo of her that's this big fat meanie. It's like a really mean drawing because he draws her all puffed up, and she sees it and thinks SpongeBob did it and removes a gold star, which SpongeBob is mad about, and makes so that makes him not like Patrick because Patrick draws it, and he has to move to the back of the room because of it. Also, SpongeBob does. So eventually, they start passing notes, kind of hate notes, and they start spitballing each other, and a spitball hits Mrs. Puff, and she's like, "Okay, it's time for recess." And then they fight in the hallway.
Yeah, actually fight.
Yeah, they fight in the hallway, and then they both get detention, and basically they're talking trash in detention. It's just the two of them, and it's they're talking trash, and then SpongeBob says, "I'd hate you even if the light bulb keeping Roger alive went out." And then the light bulb goes out, and Roger starts freezing. And then they have to just work together, and they apologize, and they replace the light bulb. And there's like, all right, so there's like thousands of light bulbs in the light bulb closet, but like Patrick is dumb, and he climbs to get the one keeping the room lit.
Yeah.
Like, and he's wearing like lederhosen and stuff, like, like a Swedish hiking outfit, which is funny.
Or a German one, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah. So, and then he gets it and he turns it on, and it's like everything's good. And then Roger hatches. It's like a live action chick, and he says, "Hey, what did I miss?" Which makes no sense, but that's what happens. Yeah.
And then obviously not obviously.
And they both get a gold star.
Yeah, because Mrs. Puff was watching through a one-way blackboard, and she like turns on the light behind it, and it shows her face.
Oh my, the one-way chalk. Yeah.
Oh, that was a good episode. And
by the way, I'm sure many of our explanations make half sense, but it makes perfect sense when you watch it.
Oh yeah, and one of my favorite gags from this was when they were doing trash talk in the detention, and I forget what the exact thing Patrick said. Like, he said something to SpongeBob that was supposed to insult him that made absolutely no sense, and SpongeBob's like, "I'd hate you even if that made sense." That was pretty funny. But yeah, this is a good episode, and this is one that I kept mixing up with other ones earlier on in our discussion of the episode. So yeah, it was nice to finally get rid of this one and not have to worry about screwing it up again. Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of new Student Starfish. So next we have Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5. This is a fun episode, so obviously we got to do the introduction for how this episode came about. And basically how it goes is Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are having a bit of, if not a midlife crisis, then like a end-of-life crisis, where Barnacle Boy is obviously younger than Mermaid Man, or at the very least is more mentally stable, and he is getting a bit of an ego problem about being called Barnacle Boy, and he wants to be Barnacle Man. And Mermaid Man takes him to the Krusty Krab, and he wants to buy him a Pipsqueak Patty, which is apparently a thing. It's just like a kid's Krabby Patty. And he wants an adult Krabby Patty because he's a man. And he doesn't get one, and he eventually leaves Mermaid Man. He's like, "I'm forming my own superhero legion."
I love this episode.
Yeah, so he leaves, and Mermaid Man's super sad, and SpongeBob comes out to console him, and yeah, that's essentially how that goes. And they just stay away from each other, I guess. And Mermaid Man, he goes off, and he gets his own super villain team, and he joins up with Man Ray and the Dirty Bubble from the two previous, from Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2 and 3. And they become the villainous group EVIL, which apparently stands for Every Villain is Lemons, going off of the POOP acronym for interesting acronyms in SpongeBob. So that happens. So Mermaid Man realizes that he has to come out of retirement again and get a new superhero team to take down this evil team. And basically how he realizes that is he tries to take them on his own, and he gets destroyed almost immediately. So he goes and finds the International Justice League of Super Acquaintances, but they're all on vacation or something, so he can't get the actual one. So he recruits a bunch of SpongeBob characters to take their place. So to go down the list, SpongeBob becomes the Quickster, who can run at amazing speed. And Squidward becomes Captain Magma, and it gets funny because Squidward just becomes super sassy. And then Patrick becomes the Elastic Waistband, so basically Elastigirl if you've watched The Incredibles. And Sandy becomes a Misappear, and basically just gets to be invisible, just like Violet from The Incredibles.
Yeah, or Fantastic Four ripoff, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, except the Fantastic Four is worse than this episode. Ooh,
yes.
Hot take. Ooh. But seriously, it's a terrible movie.
They're all bad.
Regardless of what reboot you're talking about. But yeah, that's how that goes, and it starts in how does it go? So they're in the man cave. Not the man cave. Is it? No, the Mermalair. Why do you say the man cave? That's
The man.
Mermaid Man just has like a man cave and he's just in his mom's house. No, that'd be stupid. But no, they're in the mermaid lair and they're on a conference call with someone that I always think resembles Donald Trump a lot for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't remember what he looks like.
Yeah, I'll look up a here. How about you look up a picture of him and tell me who that actor is? Because I have no idea who it is. But
All right.
yeah, they get on a conference call with him and he's being ridiculous. He's supposed to be like the standard director of the superheroes from like 80s cartoon, and he's giving them their instructions and he's kind of mocking them, and he tells them to go to Makeout Reef because apparently the evil is on Makeout Reef and terrorizing all of the teenagers that just want to kiss. So, and that's it. So that's what they're doing there. And basically what they're doing is they're just shining a flashlight on their car. And like it was funny because like the one that they showed, it was just this one guy sitting in a car with a pillow and kissing. He's like, "Hey, not cool, man." So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, they're at Makeout Reef and they're all confronting the team of supervillains, and it goes horribly wrong for the International Justice League of Super Acquaintances because they eventually just take them take themselves out of the fight by using their superpowers poorly. Like one example was SpongeBob. He just runs himself into the ground because I don't even know how he did it. Oh, I remember now. So Captain Magma shoots out a fiery blast and it hits the Quickster, and that just burns the Quickster down. The Quickster just keeps running to try and outrun the lava, as if that's a thing when it's on your head. So he just keeps running and running, and eventually it just becomes a pair of shoes. And yeah, he's just by the end of the fight, he's just like, "What did I miss?" And then Sandy tries to sneak up on the evil, and she gets hit by a car, and she just gets thrown off of a cliff. So yeah, that's actually kind of dark, getting hit by a car. That's not pleasant. And I'm trying to remember what happens to Patrick. Oh, that's right. So Patrick tries to stop SpongeBob from running around, and he grabs onto SpongeBob, and SpongeBob just keeps running and running and tugs Patrick's appendages, and Patrick just gets ripped apart. So that's kind of dark as well. And what happens to Squidward? Let's see. Squidward, yeah, shoots some lava on SpongeBob. What else happens here? Oh, yeah, that's right. So, what's his name? Mermaid Man tries to solve the situation by cooling off the Quickster, and he's like has this big targeting thing. He's like aiming his water ball, and he thinks that Captain Magma Squidward is the Quickster, so he throws it at Squidward, and basically he extinguishes him, and that injures Squidward for some reason. So yeah, basically all four of the superheroes have been taken out at this point, and it's just Mermaid Man against evil again. And essentially what happens is Barnacle Boy just demands three things of Mermaid Man: that he not be treated as that he be treated as a superhero, not a sidekick, that he be called Barnacle Man, and that he be allowed to eat an adult-sized Krabby Patty. And then once Mermaid Man agrees to that, he just rejoins their team, and Man Ray and the Dirty Bubble give up and walk away. And then it just cuts to an end scene of them at the Krusty Krab again, and all of the International Justice League of supervillains, their super acquaintances, being destroyed by their injuries, and like Sandy being in a wheelchair from the car accident, and SpongeBob having a ton of bandages all over him, and them just all generally being injured. And Barnacle Boy is eating an adult Krabby Patty, and it ends with Barnacle Boy being like, "Ooh, this is actually pretty big. I don't know if I can finish this." And they all just laugh because of the irony of the entire episode, and that's essentially it. In terms of some of the gags, I really like that one where they're shining the flashlights on a bunch of the just teenagers that are making out, because like, they're not actually being evil at all. They're just being jerks.
And it's kind of perverted. It's kind of gross.
Yeah. I mean, they did it to themselves, and
yeah.
And
also, I'm reading. There's a running gag. Mermaid Man smiles in this episode a lot, and when he does, Mr. Krabs slaps him. When he does nothing but smile, Mr. Krabs slaps him, and I remember it now, thinking about it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not something he would really remember. But I do remember it because he's got
Did you ever figure out who the guy is in the show?
Yes, I was gonna say that. I have a lot of backstory.
Okay.
His name's Martin Olson.
Huh.
He doesn't do anything else other than this. But did you watch Adventure Time ever?
Oh my God! I just looked up a picture of him. Ooh, that is not a good first picture.
Did you watch Adventure Time?
Yeah, I've watched some of it.
Well, he and his daughter voice. So his daughter voices Marceline, so he voices her dad, Abadir.
I don't remember either of
If
those
you know
two.
that character, well, if you look up Marceline's dad or whatever, it'll come up.
Oh
But
yeah, I do. The vampire. Okay.
Yeah, the Nightosphere owner. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they like father daughter voiced an actual father daughter pair. That's all I know.
God, it looks like a mix between Joan Rivers and Anderson Cooper. Who? That might be a little harsh, but I don't know.
Martin Olson.
Poor guy. Apparently he's a writer, so I don't know if he just wrote for the
I'm
episode.
sure he might co-produce.
I don't know. But in terms of the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes, this is probably second best behind the motion picture episode. I'm a big fan of that one.
I really like the motion picture one. I like the Man Ray episode.
Yeah, that one's not bad at all. You know
That's
me.
not my fault.
Yeah, like with me, I just like taking the underdogs. You know, that's me. So
Yeah.
I probably underrate the Man
It's a
Ray.
good episode. I haven't seen it in a long time. I have to pirate it sometime.
Oh man. But yeah, that's Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5, and I suppose we can go on to the next episode, which is also one I'm a big fan of, just because of the music. We have Clams. So you want to take this one and really dissect some of the music in this episode?
Yeah, hold on. I just read the symbol used for every villain is lemons. Their symbol, it looks like the Hydra symbol from Marvel. I
Oh,
never
does
thought
it?
about it. It is.
Oh, I've never thought about that either. I know the symbol looks like an evil face on a lemon, but...
And I think it does have tentacles.
Yeah.
I gotta look this up now.
Here, let me see a picture of this. That is not what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah, that's just not what I'm thinking of at all. I just looked up evil. Of course, it's a picture of it. Okay, that's disturbing.
It does look like Hydra.
Okay, it just pulled up a bunch of creepypasta SpongeBob pictures, so...
Oh, I just looked up evil symbol SpongeBob.
Oh yeah, I just looked up evil SpongeBob.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that probably wasn't the
Probably
smartest.
saw like the Suicide Squidward creepypasta.
Yeah, one of SpongeBob stabbing Patrick with a knife, and
Jesus.
yeah, in all its bloody glory. But yeah, that kind of does look like the Hydra symbol, actually. Huh.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I guess they based it off of it. I mean, like the tentacles are in the exact same place, so.
Yeah.
Also, you can get that logo on a T-shirt or a hoodie. Which I would definitely do if I had money. I kind of like it.
Yeah, that's a good option.
But all right.
Well, now we can get
what am I doing?
Everyone's favorite Radula episode, Clams. See what I did there, Radula?
Yes. Why am I doing? So did you miss an episode?
You skipped Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5.
I skipped it, but
Yeah.
that's a B episode. I'm doing the
Yeah,
A
it was 52B.
So
I see. So what screwed it up was me doing Party Pooper.
Oh yeah. All right. Clams. All right. Well, let me do. Look, I'll do. I don't want to do 3 in a row. I'll do clams. You'll do ugh, because that's pretty easy to explain.
Okay. Yeah, I can do Clams.
Clams. Wait, are you doing clams or ugh?
Which do you want?
I don't care. I can do both.
You can do Ugg, because I know I'll talk forever about Ugg.
Yeah, I have ugh on DVD actually. It's like a Nicktoons. I have like a Nicktoons top 5 episodes thing, and ugh was on it apparently.
Huh. Okay.
And yeah.
All right. Well, Clams. So I'm a huge fan of this episode. I think it's pretty underrated. I think it's another one of these episodes that gets into a lot of character development, and that's really fun. Obviously, it only gets into Mr. Krabs, but you don't get a lot of episodes that dive into Mr. Krabs' character, so that's really fun. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head is, well, obviously, Can You Spare a Dime? But that one doesn't really go that in depth. But the one where he's with his Navy buddies and he's like hanging out and it's like, oh, old armor abs crabs, and That's a good episode. I'm surprised we haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, we have clams. So essentially, what happens here is Mr. Krabs makes his $1 millionth, which is kind of surprising considering he's been in the restaurant business for 20 years. But okay, sure, $1 millionth, and he just starts doing a dance and rubbing the dollar bill all over his loins, and that happens. And he just looks elated, and he tells everyone that they're going to get to go on a crazy fishing trip to celebrate his millionth dollar. Except he doesn't tell them it's a fishing trip. He says it's going to be a lot of fun, and Squidward gets excited because he's like, "Ooh, a company vacation!" So they're on a fishing trip, and Mr. Krabs is having a great time because he likes fishing or something. And they're fishing for clams, and they're not getting anything, and they're on like a stinky boat, and Squidward and SpongeBob want to go home and whatnot. And essentially what happens from there is Mr. Krabs just starts getting angry at them, and he's like, you guys should have fun and actually go fishing. So here, I'm trying to remember what exactly happens here. Okay, yeah, SpongeBob starts to get into the fishing more so, and he starts hooking a bunch of random things, and he hooks like a barrel, and he hooks Squidward's pants or something, and then he just basically hooks everything on the boat, and then he hooks Squidward's nose. And that becomes a disturbing thing where he rips off Squidward's nose, and you hear Squidward screaming in pain. And yeah,
Jesus.
no, that actually happens. And then you see a picture of Squidward's nose ripped off. Like they actually show like a hole in his face, and he's like, "I want to go home, Mr. Krabs." And Mr. Krabs is just laughing. He's like, "Look, he's having fun. Look at him. He's fishing." And then SpongeBob hooks Mr. Krabs' butt, and he gets the $1 millionth. And Mr. Krabs is like, no, not the dollar, not my $1 millionth. And SpongeBob throws it in because he's using it as bait. And Mr. Krabs is like, quick, pull that line back in. Quick, hurry, they're gonna start the chorus. And then they start the chorus, and here, I'll play that real quick.
There you are, you stinking Mildred! Stop playing that music! Stop it, please! I'm begging you!
Yeah, and basically he wants them to stop playing the music because that cues when the giant clam comes, and it becomes an awesome recurring gag where it just shows like a German, I think it's German, a German symphony playing a song in E minor. I have no idea what that song is. If you remember, feel free to chime in, but it's great, super intense. And like you just have the clam getting closer and closer to the boat and like chasing him down basically. And
I don't know the music.
Yeah,
It might be original. I'm not sure, and they just took footage of an orchestra, but I doubt it.
I mean, it's not exactly like a complicated song. It's just like a two different. I don't want to say measures, but yeah.
The title card for the episode is like it's a Jaws ripoff. You just see a giant clam under the water, where like Jaws would be. You know the movie poster for Jaws, where the shark's head is under the water, mouth open, going up to grab a girl. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. I've never seen Jaws actually. I know the premise, but.
Well, look up Jaws poster.
Okay, I'll look up Jaws poster. Okay, I see what you mean. I think. Hopefully I'm looking at the right one. Okay, now I'm definitely seeing it, yeah.
The one... Yeah, and you look at the title card for clams, and you see the...
Okay, well, yeah, that's basically what happens, and just as SpongeBob's about to reel in the $1 millionth, and as Mr. Krabs is holding it in his hand, the giant clam jumps up and snatches it out of his hand. Mr. Krabs can't believe it. And then from there, the middle part of the episode has Mr. Krabs being depressed about losing his $1 millionth and essentially being inconsolable, and Squidward being like, come on, Mr. Krabs, get yourself together, and he can't. And Mr. Krabs is just like, Mommy! And but Squidward's just like, geez, Mr. Krabs, get a hold of yourself. And then Mr. Krabs just, his eye sockets become like water faucets, and he's just spewing out tears, and Squidward just can't believe how ridiculous Mr. Krabs is being, and it just becomes more and more ridiculous from there, as the writers like to do. And Squidward's like, okay, SpongeBob, we gotta take care of this guy and get that $1 millionth back. So they start fishing and trying to get the dollar back, and that's not working, and they're stuck on the boat for 3 days trying to fish and get that $1 millionth, and it just doesn't happen. And yeah, from there, Mr. Krabs just gets more and more insane, and I forget what he does after that. Let's see. Oh, that's right. So he uses SpongeBob and Squidward as bait for the clam, which is dark to say the least. He's literally using them as bait because he doesn't care about them anymore. They lost his $1 million, and he's using them to try and lure the giant clam over. And essentially, what happens from there is the symphony breaks out again. It opens up in what essentially is where the captain's quarters would be. It just opens up like a curtain, and like they just start playing. And SpongeBob and Squidward realize what's happening, and the clam comes up. And what happens from there is right before they get eaten by the giant clam, Mr. Krabs shuts the wooden curtains, and he's like, "Nope, stop, stop!" And like he stops the symphony, and that stops time apparently. And Mr. Krabs just jumps on the clam, and he gets the $1 million out of its mouth, and he's standing in the clam. And then the clam chomps down because the wooden curtains all of a sudden open back up, and the symphony starts playing again. And what looks like Mr. Krabs getting eaten happens, and the clam sinks back down underwater, and Squidward and SpongeBob still tied up or crying because they think Mr. Krabs just died, which wasn't unreasonable at the time. It was season 3. So, yeah, that was a bit of a death tease right there. And then all of a sudden the clam pops up back above the water, and Mr. Krabs is trying to essentially choke the clam into letting him go. And he's squeezing its uvula, which was disgusting, to say the least. And that happened.
Gross.
Yeah. And so that's happening, and eventually he gets the $1 million back. And Mr. Krabs says he made a trade with the clam. And Squidward and Mr. Krabs, the trade that he made was in exchange for his $1 million, he gave the rest of his body, except for his head. And Mr. Krabs just starts laughing, and then the episode cuts to black. So, obviously, in terms of the gags, we have the symphony, which is amazing. Really like that. I always like when the show works in music, even for something like The Best Day Ever. It just works, and it's really fun.
And another example of using like live action footage in a cartoon in an animated series.
Yep, definitely. And the clam is always a fun character, and just in terms of Mr. Krabs' character development, realizing that like he needs his accomplishments, and when he loses something that he feels like he earned, he just doesn't know what to do with himself, and he becomes inconsolable, and it just shows how much he depends on like what he accomplishes for his emotional stability, and when that is lost on him, he just breaks down, and how much Squidward and SpongeBob can be reliant on him at some point, with them obviously not being able to make it back to shore without Mr. Krabs, so they have to get him back under control. And the giant clam, obviously, just being a fun character, and that it kind of represents the Jaws shark, and it's just kind of terrorizing the boat for a while.
Yeah, and you also get a Moby Dick vibe.
Yeah, you kind of do, because Mr. Krabs is obviously choking it out at the end.
Especially with did he ever have a harpoon?
I can picture that in my mind, but I think that might just be my imagination.
I don't know. Maybe. But when the clam's back like breaks over the waves, that's like a Moby Dick thing. Less of a Jaws.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any pictures if I look up Mr. Krabs harpoon on Google Images, so I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I can imagine.
Yeah,
that.
me either.
Okay. That does bring up a. Okay, that's kind of weird. That just pulled up a later episode titled Mrs. Krabs, which is apparently about Pearl's mother. So, yikes! But
what?
I don't even want to know.
I don't even remember this.
Here, let me just look at what season this is.
Oh gosh, it's probably season 8. Goo Goo Gas.
Yeah, I can't even figure out what episode this is. Here, let me look this up on Wikipedia. I don't know why I'm giving this episode so much credit. But yeah, it's literally about Pearl Krabs, which is apparently its name. And, oh god, Betsy Krabs. Who the heck is Betsy Krabs? Here, Mrs. Krabs SpongeBob episode. Come on, give it to me. I can't find it. Okay, well, I'll tell you guys when I eventually hunt it down. But yeah, that's clams. Big fan of that episode. If you just want to listen to the soundtrack, I know they have a 2-minute soundtrack of that actual song from the episode. Just look up SpongeBob Clams music. It's great. Good music if you're, I don't know, doing homework or something, because that's a thing people do. And yeah, it's a good episode. Okay. After that, I guess we go into the prehistoric age and get Ugh.
Yes. There's theories that Pearl is adopted clearly, and
Well, maybe not now.
well, why would it be Betsy Krabs? That's not possible. There's theories that Pearl's mother was whaled, like whaling, like killed.
Yeah.
And that Pearl was like an infant at the time. There's images. Goodness gracious. There's like a picture of a giant bloody whale, and then Pearl curled up near its fin, and Mr. Krabs' claw saying, "Oh, poor thing. I'll help you." Jeez.
Oh wait,
What was
Betsy.
happening?
Sorry, Betsy Krabs is his mom actually, so it is Pearl
Oh
Krabs.
yeah.
Okay.
Pearl's adopted.
I mean, she has to be. I don't even want to think about what that.
We can go back to the couple in what was it? Bye Bye Valve? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Rockabye by Valve.
Oh, Rockabye Valve. The couple thinking. When you say like crab plus question mark equals whale.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of conjures up images of those weird dog breeds, but.
Oh gosh. Yeah. All right. Let's do get out of the way. So. Let's see. It's got Patchy the Pirate again. I'm not a big fan of him. We've talked about him on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Portrayed, he's Tom Kenny, who voices SpongeBob. So he's debating with Patchy, himself. He's debating with his parrot, Potty, that the past is better than the future. And so they're arguing, and this alludes to SB-129.
Yeah.
And so we already saw SB-129. So it cuts to the cartoon, which is in a prehistoric time, like 100 million years ago. And it's Caveman, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward, who are appropriately named SpongeGar, Patar, and Squog.
Yeah. Gotta love Squog.
So all you see is basically normal antics, like SpongeGar and Patar playing with logs and rocks, because they don't have jellyfish nets or anything yet. They annoy Squog. So, and they're playing with a log, and lightning strikes it and it starts a fire. And so they all circle around it, and they realize they can cook food, and so they're pretty happy with that. And that's kind of where, and then it goes back to Patchy and Potty, who are fighting, and Patchy brings in a real life caveman, and Potty brings in a robot, and they start fighting each other, and it's really weird. So basically, and then it cuts back to the cartoon. They're full from eating, and they all say goodbye to each other, and they start walking away, and then they all turn around and say, "Who's going to take the fire?" So they all start fighting over it, and they all start rolling it around, trying to steal it from each other, like beating each other up. And then Squawk, unfortunately, because he's Squidward and everyone hates him, he gets struck by lightning, and SpongeGar and Patar cook mushrooms over his charred body.
Yep.
That's a quote from the website. So, yeah, and so the caveman and the robot are still fighting at Patchy's house, and then Potty's like, "I got you a gift," and it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is weird, and Patchy says goodbye as he's been eaten by the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah, and then they break into that whole song that.
When worlds collide. Yeah.
Yep.
There's also this is on the website. They made a language for the cavemen.
Oh, really?
Like example, yummy is yama, and tabangadu is it belongs to you, not me.
Well, that's a productive use of your time.
I mean, actually, dang. I mean, they put a lot into these episodes. Panuga ready means I'm ready. Yeah. So now I kind of want to watch the episode with this in front of me and be like, what are they saying?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I'm sure someone's actually already done that. Put subtitles.
Okay, well that's Ugg, and yeah, honestly, my feelings of it are kind of summed up by that title. It was kind of interesting, but like the only interesting part was really just them cooking the food.
Yeah, I always found it like visually pleasing when like the cooking the food. I always thought the flowers looked like really tender and nice
Yeah, yeah, no,
for some
it was
reason.
really satisfying.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just
but
do like a try
really,
not to be satisfied by Ugg challenge.
my ugh.
Yeah.
Also, it reminds me Patrick stabs another stick on a stick and eats it. It's so stupid. And it goes through his face. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
It
remember
goes
that
through
too.
his cheeks.
God. Oh.
You gotta think about like it. Yeah, just cartoon physics.
Yeah, I feel like that gave me not nightmares, but just like whenever I would eat something that was long, I was like, oh God, that might happen.
Yeah,
I think that lasted for a while.
it's just yeah, it's weird to think about. It's gross. SpongeBob goes pretty hardcore on the body. What's it called?
The body horror. Or
Yeah, that's what it's called, I guess. Or violence. Yeah,
no, it definitely does, and it takes that to a new level after the movie. But
I mean, there's banned stuff in like later seasons
there is.
with like multiple bodies morphed together.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like Squid Bob Tentacle Pants or something.
yeah. I think that was banned in like Great Britain.
Oh God.
I've seen it. I've seen it on TV, but it's not.
No, it's not
It,
terrible.
yeah, but it's just weird to think of it like a bunch of bodies stuck together and they're all in shock. It's nasty.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. If you're gonna ban any SpongeBob episode, either that or what is it? The episode where with the snail zombies or whatever it is, where the Halloween episode. I don't remember what.
Oh, I was a teenage Gary.
Yes,
That was kind of disturbing. Yeah.
yeah, that's probably my least favorite episode ever. But
Ever?
no, not ever. Pre-movie.
Goo gas?
Yeah, Goo Goo Gas wasn't that bad.
Or what? Something.
I'm sure there were way worse ones than Goo Goo Gas. I mean, it wasn't good, but like it
Oh,
wasn't.
you want to talk about something nasty? Oh, what episode was it? There's an episode. It's like season 7 or 8. SpongeBob buys this cute little fish.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, where he buys
It turns
another
to
pet.
this nasty worm that's always dripping saliva. It's
Oh, I
got
hated
raisins.
that episode so much. Because like
So
it just
I
ruins
was like,
SpongeBob's
the
character.
detail, the
Oh,
detail was like so. Yeah, it's like why would you abandon Gary?
and like it's not even that. Like the entire time, SpongeBob thinks that Gary is like beating up the new pet, and like the new pet is trying to eat SpongeBob and Gary, and like he's completely oblivious to the entire plot of the episode, and he's just like, Gary, why are you being so mean to your new pet? And like he's literally saving his life, and SpongeBob is just completely oblivious, and like that just gets into the whole one-dimensional
Yeah,
stuff where it's just like SpongeBob becomes dumber than dumb, Squidward becomes incredibly mean, Mr. Krabs just becomes the cheapest person ever. That honestly
yeah.
summarizes up every post
Trying
movie.
to find a picture of it. I can't find it.
Yeah, but no, it got bad.
Here it is. Oh, Puffy Fluffy. Yeah. It's like I was like, that's the name of it, and it's nasty to look at. It has a mouth in the mouth. No, it's got 3 mouths in its mouth. It has nasty jagged teeth
Oh.
that look like rock pillars.
Yeah, it just looks like a giant slug if
It's
it had.
constantly oozing.
Oh God.
I mean, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, it certainly didn't help that it came in one of the worst episodes ever. Okay, well,
Yeah, that's true.
on the subject of bad episodes, we have our next one, The Great Snail Race, where it's another one where SpongeBob's character is just taken completely out of
Hold
character.
on. Should I explain? Am I explaining this to get back on track with
Do you,
AB?
I mean, do you want to get back on track?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Just get back in the AB form.
Honestly, you might be a little more fair with this one. I probably was going to be a bit too harsh,
Oh,
because I am not a fan of this.
it's not bad. It's not good.
It's bad.
Not great gags other than tortellini.
Yeah.
Um,
Squidward's good in this episode, but that's it.
what's good in this episode?
Squidward.
He's kind of cocky as usual. All right. Okay, so we got like 45 minutes. Okay. Stop it, dog. Alright, here we go.
Here we go.
So, okay, I'm just trying to remember this thing. Okay, so, SpongeBob and Gary, they get up, they go outside. Today's the day of the snail race. SpongeBob doesn't know that. He sees a package for Squidward tennis balls. And Squidward's like, oh, whatever. And then it's a purebred snail, like straight out of the box, which is kind of cruel to think about how he just bought a snail and it arrived in a container.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
I guess it was a cage. That's not bad. Pet trafficking.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they do that for like if you're getting a pet from like the kennel or something. Sure, sometimes. Well, not the kennel, but like a purebred.
Usually pick up, but whatever. All right, it's named Snelly. It's like this purple female attractive snail. Gary thinks it's cute. She's cute. It's a purebred of the highest pedigree, and the snail race is on the following Sunday. SpongeBob says he can't enter Gary because Sunday is laundry day. Squidward calls Gary a mutt, which offends SpongeBob and Gary, and he's like, fine, I'm going to enter the race and beat Snelly. And the running gag, voice crack. Running gag for the pedigree certificate. Sorry. Patrick reads it and misreads Squidward's name as tent poles.
Yep.
So it's running gag. So they start. Oh yeah. So SpongeBob starts training Gary. He overtrains him. Gary's always exhausted. He's dehydrated. He's worn out. So day of the race, he's like super worn out. Yeah, he sounds like that.
Yeah. How about these sound effects?
Yeah. He pants and he can hardly start the race. He's like been pushed by SpongeBob, who's like trying way too hard. And so basically Gary eventually, his shell bursts and you see an engine and he starts like skidding out of control. He leaves tire tracks and he rams the stands. And then Snelly sees him, feels bad, goes back for him, and they cross the finish. No, they don't cross the finish line.
No. Rocky crosses the finish line.
I'm getting there. Snelly almost crosses the finish line, turns around to help Gary. And then we see Patrick's snail, which is actually a rock. Named, what was he named?
Rocky.
Oh, nice. Okay. Crosses the finish lines, and Patrick's like getting roses thrown at him. That's so funny. Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and then whatever. Yeah, and then Patrick's like, I got the trophy engraved for you. And Squidward's like, it's the first place snail racing presented to Squidward Tortellini. Oh, and then Sandy comes on screen and kicks SpongeBob into the air.
Yeah.
That's from earlier.
Because apparently SpongeBob made some comment to Gary about you don't want to be like a wuss or something like those squirrels. And Sandy, it cuts to a picture of Sandy being like, I don't know why, but now I have a sudden urge to kick SpongeBob's butt.
Yeah, and then she does it then. She says that's for yesterday, SquarePants. Yeah, basically not an entertaining episode.
No, and I'm about to lay into this episode, so...
Go ahead.
I actually have this episode as a book for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's like a picture book, and it's when Nintendo, for some reason, made picture books of some of their TV shows. I don't really know why. But that just more so exposed me to this episode, so... I think this episode is bad because it messes up SpongeBob's character. So I'm fine if you want to do character development through developing a character. But this isn't developing SpongeBob at all. SpongeBob, not the whole premise, but a significant portion of his character has to do with the fact that he's not competitive. Like, that's kind of a thing. Like, he's not easygoing either, but like, he competes with himself. He doesn't compete with other people. I'm sure there's like 1 or 2 episodes where he's doing that, but that's more so in a friendly way. In this case, he wants to run Squidward into the ground with his snail. And this entire episode is premised around SpongeBob is overworking Gary and essentially working him till he's just completely exhausted, and he just becomes a huge jerk about it, and it doesn't make sense in the context of his character because that's not who SpongeBob is. So he just keeps overworking Gary more and more and more. And obviously, you have Gary just looking completely exhausted at the actual race, and like his eye stalks are crumpled over, and he's panting the entire time. And you just see SpongeBob pushing him harder and harder and harder, and screaming at him to push harder. And like it almost becomes disturbing at some points because like Gary looks like he's about to pass out from like heat stroke or something, and SpongeBob's like, "I don't think you're trying hard enough, Gary," and it just becomes disgusting, and like SpongeBob just keeps doing that, and eventually Gary's shell cracked, as you mentioned, and just becomes an engine, and then SpongeBob starts to realize that he's what he's doing, and Gary just starts moving faster and faster, and then he crashes into a wall, and the announcer comes on, and it's like, "Oh God!" And like Gary just starts crashing, and spins out of control with like those skid marks everywhere because like it's supposed to represent like a drag race or something. So that's yeah. I just don't like that episode because of it. And I like Squidward in this episode because of those gags with his name. That's always fun. I'm surprised they never came back to that, but it does make the episode special in that regard. And Patrick's fun because of Rocky, just because it's so stupid. Like, Patrick entered a rock in a snail race and he won. But yeah, there isn't too much to this episode aside from the announcer and Squidward. Okay, I think that was a bit of a relief for me. Okay. Whew.
Yeah, you went pretty in.
I mean,
pretty far in.
you gotta work within your world. You can't just have a character do something they never do. It's like, I'm trying to figure
Well,
it out.
you can, but
I mean, you can, but it just
They
doesn't make
did.
sense. I mean, it's like if they had an episode where SpongeBob was in college or something. Like, just why? It doesn't make sense. So, yeah. Okay.
Rocky appears in 3 more episodes.
Really? Huh.
I don't know. These are newer. Buried in Time, Patrick's Staycation, and The Endless Summer.
I've actually seen Patrick's Staycation. That episode sucks.
And I never really noticed, but I mean, I wasn't paying that much attention. But I mean, Rocky is just a scaled down version of Patrick's house.
Yeah. I was actually thinking of like a fan theory or something where that became his house because it
I love how like mature this wiki is because Patrick enters Rocky in a snail race competing against Gary and Squidward Snail Snelly. Somehow it actually wins the snail race despite not showing any signs of sentience. So sophisticated.
Yeah, it's a pretty intellectual commentary right there. Okay. Well, this next episode is...
they changed Rocky's color in the later episodes. They made him gray.
Why?
I don't know, but there's a picture of him in Buried in Time in Patrick's hands, and he's gray, like the color of like a stratus cloud, or like when your pencil's really dull and all you get is that really light faded gray.
Oh, okay. Oh my God. Sorry, I just looked at this picture that you sent me. This will be in the show notes for you guys, but this is what Bailey was talking about when he meant like the body horror.
Oh, you see the eye at the bottom? At the bottom?
Oh, God. Yeah, I see it. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's this. Yeah.
And even Squidward's neck. He looks like one of those Bengali people who like stretch out their necks with those iron rings.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Oh, yeah.
That was banned.
God,
SpongeBob's limbs are spread out.
Yeah, no kidding. I remember that episode, actually.
I wonder whose eyeball that is.
Jeez.
Oh.
Okay, well, luckily that didn't distract me from the next episode. I'm going to be talking about Midlife Crustacean. So, I know we both really like this episode.
Yes.
Okay. So, this is actually another episode where Mr. Krabs gets some character development, surprisingly, and SpongeBob and Patrick, because they get to be the cool guys for once. So, that's interesting. You don't get that too often. So, how this episode starts off is Mr. Krabs is going through a midlife crisis. So, it goes through the standard midlife crisis stuff. You get to see your body, and you're like, oh, look at me, I'm getting fat. And Mr. Krabs sees his chin, and he's like, oh, I got a double chin, and he has like whiskers and all that stuff. And he goes downstairs, and Pearl has made him breakfast, and it's like some bland cereal, and Mr. Krabs is like, "Hey, Pearl, do you think I'm old?" And Pearl's like, "Yeah, but you're supposed to get old, and daddies are supposed to be old," and that's basically what she says, and he doesn't like that answer, so he storms out, and he has to take a giant pill, and that's funny because Mr. Krabs is like, "Oh boy, here we go again," and he's taking like a horse pill that is essentially the size of Pearl, and he's like, "Okay, let's see how this goes." And I don't remember if the show cuts away or not. If they didn't, they probably should have, because that could have been funny if they said like we're having technical difficulties. But yeah, he has to take the giant pill, and
Is this the part where he's like, I hate the pill?
yeah, he's like, "I hate the pill," because
They show him swallow it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it goes in his mouth. So
I mean, it's humongous, but
yeah.
Okay, yeah, and he has to like take it every day. But yeah, Mr. Krabs is walking down the street, and he feels old, and he sees a bunch of kids on the street. He's like, "Oh, I wish I was a kid." And like some Boy Scout is helping him cross the street because he's old, and he doesn't want to get help crossing the street. And Mr. Krabs' arm just falls off in the Boy Scout's hands. And Mr. Krabs is like, "Sorry about that. That happens all the time."
Jesus.
So yeah, he has to pick up his hand again. So he's going to the Krusty Krab still, and apparently he's walking really slowly. And the guy behind him is like, "Come on, would you hurry up? We don't have all day." And eventually he just passes Mr. Krabs, and it turns out that Mr. Krabs apparently has turn signals on his butt, and like he had his turn signal on, but he wasn't merging into the other lane or something. And keep in mind, they're walking down the street here. It's not like they're driving or anything, so that was fun. So Mr. Krabs eventually gets to the actual Krusty Krab, and he's there, and he's not doing too well, and he's talking to SpongeBob or whatnot, and then he overhears one of the customers, a child, complaining that the Krabby Patty tastes funny, and the mother, and this is basically an analogy to Mr. Krabs, the mother says that the Krabby Patty is all dried out and old. And Mr. Krabs walks up, he's like, "No, it's fine. It's all right if it's old and dried out." And the mom's like, "No, it's not. It's not good to be old and dried out." And she throws it away. So that was obviously upsetting for Mr. Krabs because it's an analogy to him. So Patrick eventually walks into the Krusty Krab and meets up with SpongeBob, as he frequently does, and he's in the kitchen with him, and he's like, "So are we doing that thing tonight? And are you excited for that big night out?" And Patrick's doing that, and they're yelling, and Mr. Krabs overhears them, and he's feeling bad about himself and wants to do something fun, just as most people do when they're in a midlife crisis. So they eventually agree that Mr. Krabs is going to tag along with them for their big night out. So then they go for a little bit of a time lapse, and Mr. Krabs. So it kind of gets into that thing from Party Pooper Pants where the guests show up fashionably late. So that's fun because apparently it's cool to be late. So they're heading out for a night on the town, and here I'll just go down a list of the things that they do. So first they go on so they're going cruising apparently, and it turns out that they're just on like a 2-seater bicycle. So, yeah, Mr. Krabs calls it a chick repellent because SpongeBob and Patrick had called it the underwater heartbreaker. I don't remember that at all, but apparently that was a thing. And SpongeBob's just riding in the basket in the front, so yeah, that happens. And they ride past a bunch of adults, and they think they're sad. So that happens, and eventually they get to some grocery store, and they're riding on the kiddie rides. So that happens. Then they get to the wash, and they're just watching a car wash. Then let's see what else. Oh wait, no, that's not what happened at all. They're at a wash, and it's like a laundromat, and they're just watching the laundromat and the washing machines that run. So that's boring, obviously. Then they cut to them doing what's essentially Dungeons and Dragons, and after that they do. Let's see what else. Oh, finally they get into the interesting stuff. So Mr. Krabs wants to obviously do something exciting here because they've been doing boring activities so far. So he asks SpongeBob and Patrick if this is it and if he should just go home now. And SpongeBob's like, "But you don't want to miss the grand finale, right?" And Mr. Krabs gets excited, and SpongeBob starts raising his eyebrows. And I want to see exactly how they describe this. So, okay, yeah. So basically SpongeBob says you don't want to see the frilly bits, and Mr. Krabs has no clue what they're talking about at this point. And basically, they go on a panty raid, and so they're in some woman's house, and they are rustling through their dresser. And keep in mind, this is SpongeBob here. And like they just start pulling out her underwear, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Krabs, look at this, frilly bits." And then they start chuckling, and then the woman turns the light on, and it turns out to be Mr. Krabs' mom. He's like, Eugene. She's like, Eugene, what are you doing here? Is that my underwear? And yeah, Mr. Krabs gets angry at SpongeBob and Patrick for taking him to their mom's house, and Mr. Krabs gets grounded for the rest of the night. And yeah, he gets to stay in his car bed, and essentially the show concludes with him kind of not really resolving the situation, to be honest. It was kind of like him saying, okay, I'm alright with being a kid, but that wasn't really the premise of the show. It was about him supposedly accepting the fact that he's older, so it was kind of weird and a bit of an unresolved premise in that regard. But in terms of ongoing gags, obviously, the fact that they got a bit mature and did a panty raid, that was very interesting. What else? There was the horse pill, that was kind of fun. And aside from that, I think that was about it. Oh, actually, here's a little Easter egg. So, Mr. Krabs is actually listening to the cold radio, but it's the K-OLD radio station. So, that's a bit of an Easter egg right there. Or not Easter egg, but a little reference. So, yeah. Were you a fan of this episode?
Yeah, no, it wasn't bad. I thought it was a great plot twist to have the Candy Red be at his Miss Krabs' mother's house.
Mm-hmm.
And be introduced to her, I think, for the first time. And
it was Sailor. The Sailor Mouth was the first of her, but yeah, it's probably the second.
Oh, okay. The the good gag, you're feeling it now, Mr. Krabs. Yeah,
I forgot about that.
It's good. Oh, you didn't mention it today.
That's awkward.
Yeah, are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? And the Patrick had a grown man on his back. Patrick was on a grown man's back. Can you get off me?
Yeah, because they didn't have any kiddie rides for. They only had two, and Patrick is just riding on some guy's back who's pushing out a shopping cart. Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
This is a fun episode. I might rewatch this one as well. Okay. Well, next we have another episode that's dissecting Mr. Krabs' character development, which is Born Again Krabs. And this kind of gets into, is Mr. Krabs morally okay with being a cheapskate? Just a spoiler, he kind of is. So, you want to take this one? Yes? No? Maybe? Perhaps? Born Again Krabs?
Oh, sorry. No, it was muted. I muted it somehow. I hit the space bar on accident. Yes, I will take this. I read the synopsis.
Okay.
Alright. So, basically Mr. Krabs is doing a bunch of greedy stuff, and the Flying Dutchman comes in and takes him basically to, like, purgatory or hell.
Or Davy Jones' locker. Yeah.
Davy Jones' locker. And he's like, you gotta get in. And Mr. Krabs is like, why? And he's crying and begging. He says, you're being too greedy, you're not being generous. You're a cheapskate. So he was like, all right, because he's begging a lot. The Dutchman's like, I'll let you go, but you have to be more generous, and you gotta, be nice. So he's like, you got another chance. And Mr. Krabs returns to the Krusty Krab, and he has an employee lounge and free refills. And then, he gets like a $10,000 bill. And he doesn't have the money for it, and he's like, Mr. Krabs is like, it's fine. Mr. Krabs like shakes it all off that there's he thinks it's like a dream.
Yeah,
like the whole Davy Jones thing was a dream, and then he's taken back and he realizes it's not a dream.
Well, not even the Davy Jones thing. So he thinks like the entire events of the show, like him being all charitable and stuff, is a dream. So like that's why he's okay with doing it.
Oh, okay, so it actually happens. So the Dutchman takes him back to the locker, and I think SpongeBob's with him. And SpongeBob bets that Mr. Krabs is generous, and he bets that he would pick SpongeBob over all the money in the Dutchman's pocket. And Mr. Krabs takes the money, and SpongeBob is put into Davy Jones' locker. We see Squidward like develop and have like sympathy. Squidward is shocked that SpongeBob sold for 62 cents. And Mr. Krabs sees the errors, and he goes back to Dutchman and says, I don't want the money, I want SpongeBob. I'm sure the restaurant was like not doing well because SpongeBob wasn't at the grill. There's a gag because I think Squidward calls Mr. Krabs a crustaceous cheapskate, and that's what SpongeBob said, a few episodes ago with what was that? The dime episode. Can you spare a dime?
Yeah.
All right, and basically, Dutchman's like, here, you can have him. He deems SpongeBob being in Mr. Krabs' life would be a fate worse than death because all he does is talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the premises there was that SpongeBob was with the Flying Dutchman for like 40 seconds. And like the Flying Dutchman says that, and I love that in shows when like they actually stick to the runtime of the episode with the time. They're not like, oh, SpongeBob was there for 10 minutes, but it's actually been like 10 seconds, or there's like a count.
Was it actually 40 episodes?
40 seconds.
40 seconds?
Yeah, like I checked, and like it was whatever time they said, and that's really nice because like you think of like all of those not crime shows, but like action movies where like there's like a 5-minute countdown or something, and that 5-minute countdown takes like 15 minutes or something. You're like, that bomb should have gone off by now, and like that's just annoying. But yeah, it's really cool when like they actually stick to the time frame of the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't really have much to add on that episode. It was good, and okay. So how about this? So of these episodes that we've talked about so far, which do you think developed Mr. Krabs' character the most?
Which episode?
Yeah.
This far.
Or not this far, like the ones that we've talked about today.
Oh, today? Just today? Season 3?
Yeah, just today.
Let me pull up the list of episodes, because I got rid of that.
Yeah.
Because I had some. Let's see. Thinking about it, Born Again Krabs was pretty good for his development. And the other one you just talked about, what was the other one you just talked
Midlife
about?
Crustacean.
Yeah, that we got to see his like angry side a little bit, but looking here.
Yeah, I'll go for clams. I think we really got to see a lot of what Mr. Krabs looks like when.
Oh yeah, I should have said that. Yeah.
I mean, the other ones are good too.
One Krabs trash. We can see how greedy he is in One Krabs trash.
Yeah.
But things like Can You Spare a Dime and Born Again Krabs, they show his better side.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a lot of Mr. Krabs development lately. That's interesting. That's
in this season. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, well, that's Born Again Krabs, and that brings up the final 9 episodes of season 3. And crossing my fingers, we can make it.
And I don't think we're gonna make.
No, I don't think we are either. But
26 minutes for 9 episodes. That's like 26 minutes for 9. Like we have to go every 3 minutes would be an episode, and that does not happen.
Yeah, no, probably not. We'll probably, I don't know. We'll get, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more probably, and then we'll just do and for the next time we'll do like the last 3 episodes of season 3, and then the first half.
Talk about the movie.
Yeah, and talk about the movie, and then
we can talk about the movie for a while.
Yeah, and then see how much we get to season 4, and if we get far enough, then that might be the last one.
I think in 4.
Yeah, the plan right now is to do first half of season 4, because around the second half of season 4, it falls off that cliff.
Oh, does it fall off that cliff?
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say start at season 4. If we find one and we don't remember, or it's just straight up bad, just skip it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we're here to highlight the good ones.
Yeah, and we don't want to bash everything. Like, that just gets boring. Okay.
Yeah. So, let's see. We have, how many do we have left? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 5 before a horrible SpongeBob special I hardly remember.
Yeah, Sponge Who Could Fly. So we'll start with that one next time, I guess.
Yeah, alright.
Okay.
I remember the song, but that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is one I had an accident, and honestly, my favorite part of this episode was the gorilla. The gorilla was a good cameo in here. Not cameo. He's not from anything else. He was a good side character. I enjoyed him. So the episode starts off with Patrick, Sandy, and SpongeBob doing a little sandboarding, and there's a really funny gag with. Okay, does a gag have to be recurring in an episode, or?
No, alright, so a running gag is
Okay.
a joke that happens multiple times during the episode. A gag is just a joke.
Okay, so I can call it a gag.
For example, a running gag would be like the last name of Squidward being pronounced incorrectly multiple times.
Gotcha.
A gag would be like Man Ray and Patrick debating on whose wallet it is. That doesn't happen again in the episode.
Yeah.
It's just a funny moment.
Okay, so yeah, it starts with a gag of Patrick sandboarding, and he's sandboarding while texting, or texting while sandboarding, whatever. And he's playing a video game, and it's a video game of him sandboarding, so that's a bit meta. And he crashes into a hill and that, and then he looks up, he's like, oh darn, and then he looks up and he starts screaming because he crashes into another hill. And yeah, that happened. So Patrick is down for the count, and he's injured. So Sandy warns SpongeBob not to play games and board, because, you know, you don't want to do that. You might get in a car accident. So SpongeBob starts sandboarding, and when he does that, he's doing the crouchy Squidward, which is funny, and he's laughing, and he gets distracted, and Sandy and Patrick are laughing, and he goes off of a cliff, and he comes up to the same mountain that Patrick did, and he's like, oh, why is that mountain upside down? And it turns out that he was upside down, not the mountain, as you would predict, and he starts falling. Sandy and Patrick start shouting out advice for how he can survive, basically. And Sandy's like, land on your butt. And SpongeBob takes off his pants, and he's like this. And Patrick's like, no, your other butt. As if that's a thing. And Sandy says, don't you have to go be stupid somewhere else? And then Patrick's like, not until 4, which is awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And SpongeBob just lands on his butt, and he breaks everything, and it's just shattered.
There's like a glass sound effect, like a vase breaking, and there's just pieces of his body everywhere.
Yeah, and it's like stuck in
and
Sandy's
he's just
helmet.
like shuddering in pain.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
And Sandy's like, ooh, that looked like it hurt. And Patrick's like, I didn't see it, do it again.
Do it again, I wasn't looking.
Yeah. And then SpongeBob just goes to the doctor, gets it fixed up, and the doctor recommends some laxatives for him. No, just kidding. And he's just like, you gotta be more careful, SpongeBob. You don't want another accident like this, or you might have to get the iron butt. And like the iron butt's just like this. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a giant metal contraption that I don't really know what it does. Maybe it's for your bowel movements, but no, why not just get a stoma bag? I don't know. It was weird. Have you seen the Great Patty gadget or whatever it was, like a random season 5 episode? It looks exactly like that, actually. But
No, I haven't.
okay, well, it looks like that. So for anyone that did see that episode, it looks like that. If not, just picture like some guy whose butt is hooked up to like a giant metal.
Oh, that dude. Yeah, I know what that.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh, it itches. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so that happens, and SpongeBob now feels like he has to be super overprotective of his safety and not get hurt or anything. So he's going back to his house, and he's just going to hide out in his house and not go outside anymore. So we make some new friends, and we are introduced to the side characters of Potato Chip, Penny, and Used Napkin. So, yeah, that's a thing. And Sandy and Patrick come over, and they want to go bring SpongeBob out to go play outside, and SpongeBob doesn't want to go play because he wants to be safe. And like the thing that they wanted to bring him outside to do was go on a what is it, like a giant spanking machine, which is basically just you crawl through a giant line of people and everyone spanks you, and as if that's fun. So that was something that was going to happen. Then Patrick wants SpongeBob to come with him to go play shuffleboarding, but he isn't going to do that. So yeah, SpongeBob is just inside in his house, and Sandy and Patrick are inside trying to figure out how to get SpongeBob out. So they start just coming up with a bunch of random situations where he might come. So they say, "Oh, you want to go jellyfishing?" They bring ice cream, and then Sandy brings a trampoline, and then Patrick brings 2 ice creams, and then Sandy does something else, and Patrick says, "Still 2 ice creams," and then Patrick wants to give an old person a bath, and Sandy's like, "That's not fun, Patrick," and the old man's like, "It is for me." So yeah, that happens, and then SpongeBob sings a song about being indoors. And after that, Sandy comes up with an idea that if one of the friends is in danger, that SpongeBob will come outside to rescue him. So Sandy has Patrick dress up in a gorilla costume. And it's like a super cheap knockoff gorilla costume, and pretends that Patrick is harassing her and is gonna basically rip her apart or whatever because he's a gorilla. And SpongeBob's like, "Oh no, you'll be fine. It's not really a gorilla. That's Patrick in a gorilla costume. He wore that last Halloween." And, and Sandy's like, "No, it really is a gorilla." And then Patrick just ends up doing a bunch of stupid things and starts dancing and doing like that weird thing where I'm not even going to describe the dance, and like starts crossing his legs, and I don't know, he's just being a weirdo. And then an actual gorilla shows up and it starts terrorizing them and doing some real damage. And Sandy says, "Patrick, I thought you were in the gorilla costume." And Patrick's like, "I am in the gorilla costume." And the gorilla comes in and starts attacking Sandy, and Patrick puts him in a burlap sack and starts swinging him around. And I mean, yeah, and it gets pretty, luckily not graphic because they're in a burlap sack. But yeah, like he's just beating him up, and SpongeBob can't believe it. So eventually he gets his wherewithals and heads outside to go save his friends if he can do anything. So he takes one step outside and he's like, "I can do this!" And then the gorilla grabs him and rips him in half. And then we get the weird meta moment where SpongeBob doesn't understand how a gorilla can be underwater. And the gorilla starts talking and it runs off on like this weird zebra that reminds me of, I'm trying to think of the late night show. Was it the Late Show with, crap, what's his name? You know, the Irish guy? Not James Corden, the other guy.
Wait, the Late Show
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
But Corden does the Late
No,
Late
no,
Show.
the guy before him.
John Oliver.
No. Here, let me look at
Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon.
Craig Ferguson. Yeah, Craig Ferguson, and he has like this horse that he always brings in.
I guess he is Irish.
Yeah, and like just brings in some random horse and like talks to him occasionally, and that's what this reminded me of. And like it's just a zebra underwater, and the gorilla and zebra are running off the screen into the distance, and SpongeBob and Sandy come into frame, and they're looking off, and then the camera zooms out, and it shows like a family sitting on a couch watching the episode. And it's like they don't understand what's going on at all.
Oh, yeah, and they turn it off.
Yeah, that's how that episode ends. And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those episodes where it's a silly premise and the show just runs for it and brings in a gorilla for absolutely no reason because they can. And yeah. Okay, I had an accident. Okay, the next episode we have is Krabby Land. Oh, I actually like Krabby Land a lot. Okay, well, do it justice.
You like Krabby Land?
You don't like Krabby Land? Oh, wait. Hang on a second. I actually don't like Krabby Land. I was thinking of a different episode. Yeah, this is the one where Mr. Krabs dresses up as a clown. Yeah, this is not a good episode.
I can explain this in like...
Yeah, no, there's not too much to this episode.
All I can say... One quiet morning, SpongeBob drinks a cup of liquid French toast made by Gary in his house. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Krabs sees there's like basically a lack of children in the restaurant. He raised the price of the kiddie meals, but then he saw they're all at a new playground, so he's like, okay, I'll build my own amusement park called Krabby Land. And he built it all like overnight.
Yeah.
And it's just a bunch of dangerous, cheap attractions that are not sturdy at all. And so they're all laughable and they're all dangerous, and the children are like kind of scared. And then Well, Mr. Krabs is like, you get to meet Krabby the Clown if you bride the brides and pay admission and sign liability waivers.
Yep.
Yeah, so, gosh, this is so gross. Okay. Okay, so he dresses as the clown, and no one really likes him. Oh, okay, and SpongeBob dresses as the sidekick, the Krabby Patty burglar, and the children hate him, and they laugh at his pain, and they torture him by feeding him lima beans and tying him up.
Oh, I forgot about the lima beans, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It's like two thugs tie him up and feed him lima beans. Alright, Mr. Krabs is sorting a large stack of money, and he's like, yeah, SpongeBob's missing limbs, and he's like, I don't like this, I want to get back to work. And then, let's see. SpongeBob dresses as Cheapy the Cheapskate, which looks like Mr. Krabs.
Yeah.
And then, let's see. Oh yeah, so the kids eventually destroy the playground.
Yeah. Because they don't have
Things go
SpongeBob.
wrong, they demand their money back. Because people are hurt, and then the scene cuts to Mr. Krabs tied on all fours between wooden poles, who is forced lima beans.
Yep.
Forced to eat lima beans with thugs. And there's like a whole truckload of lima beans. Don't underestimate kids.
Yeah, now that's kind of the premise of this episode, really. It's just like, oh, look at kids. They can be super mean and ruthless just for no reason because they're kids. And I almost wonder if that was like a commentary on the audience at the time, and if like they got some bad reviews on an episode for no reason.
Maybe. I also I find it disturbing. Like he's physically tied up, like he's drawn between two poles.
Yeah.
Like spread out. That's got to be uncomfortable.
Well, yeah.
Really uncomfortable. And then you're force fed lima beans. Oof.
Yeah. Like you've never seen like a drawn and quartering, right?
No, there's no footage. It's an ancient thing. I know what it is.
Well, no, like for
There's
I was thinking of what was the movie that Braveheart, where that happens.
That happens.
Yeah, in Braveheart they recreate that.
Well, let me go watch it.
Yeah, no, like exactly. That's what so many people do. They're like, oh, maybe I should watch that movie. Don't watch that movie. Oh my
I'm not
gosh.
gonna watch Braveheart. I'm just gonna Google the scene.
No, don't Google the scene. That's nightmare fuel.
I'm a sucker for gore.
Oh, Bailey, yeah, you are. That's true, actually.
Body horror.
Ugh.
Maybe not. No, I'm not a fan of torture.
You want to see someone's bowels coming out of their butt? That's disgusting. Ugh. God, that's. Oh, Jesus. Your small intestines is not supposed to be there.
Alright, but anyway, not many good gags in that episode.
No, just Krabby the Clown.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Alright, we got two left.
Yeah, and yeah, I think we might actually have to stop on this one just because of how long this episode is.
Yeah, or how long missing identity would take long.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, I don't want to.
The camping. Oh yeah, no, yeah, we're gonna put a good 10 minutes into this one.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me just close my tabs.
So this is the final episode that we're going to be talking about today, the camping episode, and
maybe the best of the season.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we're definitely going to do a part of a show where I just go through my rankings and we're going to debate them. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. And
yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, for sure. I got to put this whole Word document to use. But
maybe one day we will not do a SpongeBob related episode.
I mean, yeah, once we get through, I just want to get through this before we go off to college, frankly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, the camping episode. So this is one of those episodes that has an awesome song in it, and it really thrives around that song. So the premise or lead-in here that I never know, but I actually do know in this case, is Squidward is looking forward to relaxing over a weekend, and he is disappointed to look out his window and see SpongeBob and Patrick are camping. So Squidward doesn't believe that you can camp if you are literally 10 feet away from your house. And SpongeBob and Patrick try to convince him by saying that camping is anywhere outdoors, and it doesn't matter where you are. And yeah, that's how that goes. And Squidward, I'm trying to forget why he joins in on the camping, but yeah, for some reason Squidward joins in on their little excursion outside. So they start by cooking food, as you do. So they're roasting marshmallows, and Squidward has his own thing of can of meatballs for some reason, so he has to go get his can opener. And SpongeBob and Patrick don't like that because he didn't bring a can opener, so they chastise him for that. And he's like, "Screw you! I'm getting a can opener anyways." And he's locked outside for some reason, so he's like, "Okay, I'll just eat the marshmallows." So he's eating the marshmallows. Patrick keeps burning his marshmallows and blowing them on Squidward's face, kind of like that scene from what is it, the jellyfishing, where Squidward is completely damaged and they're trying to make it the best day ever for Squidward, so they blow the alphabet soup all over his face. So that happens again.
Yeah.
And
More torture.
yep, Squidward's face getting all burnt up, so he never gets to eat those meatballs in case anyone was curious. And then they jump into the campfire song. And let's see. Bailey, do you want to do you want us to do a rendition of the campfire song?
No.
Okay. Fair.
I'd rather have it Googled.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll pull that up in a second, but yeah, the campfire song happens, and that's a lot of fun. And, oh, there's my phone. There it is. It's on the floor behind me. Oh, dang it! I charged it too long.
Sending you an image.
Oh, that's a real disappointment. Okay, well, yeah, they do the whole campfire song, and that's fun. And Squidward doesn't really want to join along, even though SpongeBob and Patrick repeatedly ask him to sing along. And yeah, that happens. After that, SpongeBob tries to feed Squidward marshmallows, and oh, that's right. So Squidward starts playing his clarinet, and they think it's like some horrible music or something. So Squidward gets a marshmallow lodged in his windpipe because it got shot through the clarinet. So why am I getting like 3,000 texts right now? Come on, I'm on a goddamn podcast. Stop, Jesus.
From who?
Oh my God, it keeps happening. Oh my gosh, stop. Okay, I need to turn on Do Not Disturb when I do this podcast. So that was ridiculous. Okay, but yeah, that happens. He gets a marshmallow lodged in his windpipe. He's choking. And Squidward finally recovers and just starts yelling at them. And SpongeBob says it's not safe to play the clarinet outside. You might attract a sea bear. And he goes through the many signs of attracting a sea bear, which is just a bunch of stuff that Squidward does all the time. So that's obviously not good. And eventually a sea bear does show up because Squidward doesn't believe that sea bears exist. So he, let's see, what does he do? He has a upside down sombrero hat on. He has like a hula skirt for some reason. Just a bunch of crazy stuff that makes no sense. So SpongeBob and Patrick realize that he's going to attract a sea bear, so they draw an anti-sea bear circle in the dirt. And that's supposed to protect them, apparently. And it does. The sea bear looks down and it sees the circle and it growls at them. And it moves on to Squidward, who can't believe that a sea bear is actually there. And it starts attacking him and basically just mauls him. And he comes back and he's like, "Oh no, SpongeBob, I'm sorry, I didn't realize there was actually a sea bear." And they're like, "Quick, get in the anti-sea bear circle." And he tries to get in and he can't. And the sea bear mauls him again. And let's see what happens here. Okay, and trying to remember what else. Oh, it's Patrick tries to get him to draw an anti-sea bear circle for himself, and he draws an anti-sea bear oval, which doesn't work, so he gets mauled by the sea bear again. And Squidward just jumps on top of SpongeBob and Patrick to protect himself, and he's in the sea bear circle, and he's safe, obviously. And Squidward's thankful and relieved and hugely damaged at this point. And SpongeBob mentions the sea rhinoceros at this point, and he's like, "Oh, well, you better watch out for that sea rhinoceros. You know what attracts them, right?" Patrick says the sound of a sea bear attack. So a sea rhinoceros shows up, because that made just about as much sense as the sea bear. And SpongeBob says, "Good thing we're all wearing our anti-sea rhinoceros undergarments." And Squidward's obviously not, and he just groans and
gets mauled, yeah.
As you do. And yeah, that's essentially what happens in this episode. And unless you have any gags, I can play the campfire song to get ready to close out this episode. You got anything?
I'm just thinking if you'd missed anything. I don't think you missed anything.
Okay. Well, song's loading now. And you guys get a minute of the campfire song, and I cross my fingers that this episode doesn't get flagged for a copyright infringement.
Yeah, I think we're good for right now.
Yeah, I don't know how much podcasts have to deal with that, but we'll see.
I call this one the Campfire Song. Let's gather around the campfire and sing our campfire song. Our CAMPFIRESONG song. And if you don't think that we can sing it faster, then you're wrong. But it'll help if you just sing along.
Boom, boom, boom.
CAMPFIRESONG song. CAMPFIRESONG song. And if you don't think that we
I
can sing
forgot
it faster, then you're wrong. But it'll help if you
Yeah.
just sing along. CAMPFIRESONG song. Patrick!
Sold! CAMPFIRESONG!
Squidward! Good! It'll help! It'll help if you just sing along. Oh yeah!
Yeah, that was a good song.
It's a good song.
Here, would you take that song or the one from Pizza Delivery that isn't really a song, but you know, it's like a whole bit?
I'd rather take the campfire song, but the best song in SpongeBob is "Sweet Victory" from Band Geeks. Still,
Yeah, I would still take.
I don't know what can top that.
I'd still take the Final Countdown version of that one, but if you haven't checked that out, you need to check out the Final Countdown version of that final scene, because it's a lot better. Because like it's completely mapped to their movements. As well. It's not like a straight dub. So I'm a big fan of the Final Countdown remix of Ending of Band Geeks, but nevertheless, that is probably one of the best music moments in SpongeBob history. All right. Well, we got through here. I'm going to do a final count of how many episodes we ended up getting through in total, just so we can, or more so I can shame myself for dragging it out so much on some of those episodes. So we got through, oh boy. Oh, okay. That's not good. So, if I'm correct, we got through 9 A and B episodes and 2 30-minute episodes, so that means that we got through 20 episodes in about 2.5 hours.
Oof.
Yeah, so that's about 150 minutes divided by 20, so, oh god, 7.5 minutes per episode. Okay. Well, next time we're going to be talking about the final 5 episodes in Season 3. They're all good episodes.
And then the movie, which is
then the movie,
very good on its own.
And then we'll get through as much of Season 4 as we can. And
let's do the math. If it takes us 2.5 hours for 20 episodes, and each episode is, we'll say 12 minutes.
Well,
12 times 20, that's 240.
Yeah, so okay, we could get
240 minutes of episodes in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, so that would get us up to, let's see.
So it's like a 1.8 ratio.
Yeah, so we would get.
So how long's the SpongeBob SquarePants movie? Like 100 minutes?
Yeah, I don't think we would talk about it that much longer than a normal episode, though.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, so
there's a lot to talk about, though. Maybe it'll probably take the length of 3 episodes. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so we'd probably get up through about a third of Season 4.
We could talk about it for like 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so we would get a decent...
Plenty of gags.
Okay. So here's what I'm thinking then. So we do finish up Season 3 next time, do the movie, do like a third of Season 4, and then we come back on one last time to do like probably like 5 more episodes in Season 4, talk about some of the, like a couple of the good ones from later seasons and talk about some of the really bad ones. And then we go over like rankings and stuff like that to conclude it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have an end goal in mind, folks. Yeah. Okay.
There's an ideal DVD that Nickelodeon releases. Basically, it's just the first 100 episodes of SpongeBob, which is like perfect.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
I mean, you do miss out on a couple really good episodes from Season 4, like Krusty Towers. I'm a big fan of that episode. And let's see what
else. That's in Season 4?
Yeah. If not Season 5.
Really?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think it's like the We Shall Never Deny Kiss.
Yeah, it's in Season 4. Episode
Is that
69.
That's what I'm thinking. Well, see, if what episode is season 3 in? Like 65?
60. So like that's almost halfway through season 4, which was what I was saying, that like around halfway it just it falls off a cliff.
Yes, yeah, you do get more seasons every episode, or more episodes every season. So
Yeah, it falls off a
it's
cliff.
probably 4 3/4.
Yeah, like what I saw was the last really good joke, not really good joke, last really good episode from season 4 is Once Bitten. And that's that episode I keep talking about with Plankton, with the knickknack shop, and Mr. Krabs doing like a whole new leaf thing with Plankton, and that's a really good episode. But I think
I've seen that a couple times.
But I think after that it completely falls off a cliff. So
Probably.
So yeah, we'll probably end up going up to there, which is episode.
What was that one I liked it. There's one of them I liked. Like it was like one of the specials.
Well, we can touch
When
on.
I was a kid, I liked Atlantis Fort Banners, and also the medieval one.
Yeah.
Where's Gary? That's a great special. I don't know if we covered. I think we covered that already.
Yeah. I mean, we can touch on them. I'm just saying we wouldn't go sequential any further.
Oh, or Truth or Square. I liked as a kid, at least.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can touch on the specials as well, but you all can definitely look forward to that then in our later SpongeBob recaps, as we hope to get this in fewer episodes than the Harry Potter series ended up being in terms of movies. Whew.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you guys enjoyed listening to the podcast as much as we enjoyed talking in it, hey, maybe you enjoyed the Death Note discussion the most, and you were like, hey, what was this back end of 2.5 hours of SpongeBob? I don't even like SpongeBob. I want to hear more about anime. Well, check out some of my other podcasts. I know I talked to Nathaniel for like an hour about anime and Topical 36. That was pretty fun.
Topical what? 36?
Yeah, Topical 36.
How many do you have made?
Well, this is the 38th right now, but I started on Topical 0.
Wow.
Or so-called Topical Primer, if you want to stick with the topical medicine vibe.
The pilot.
Yeah. I actually think the pilot was one of the best ones, but yeah, whatever.
Dang, so you spent, days of your life talking on a podcast.
I mean, that's an understatement right there. If you do 3 times, fair enough. Yeah, that's 3 times 39 right there. That's 117 divided by 24. That's 5 days, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of the idea behind doing the podcast, was I wanted to capture the person that I was during this time period, so when I get older, I can go back and say, was Ryan an idiot during that time? And I can listen to it and be like, yep, he was an idiot. He rambled about SpongeBob episodes forever. Oh, thanks for that thumbs up, buddy. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys agree and think I'm an idiot, well, maybe I need some reassurance.
Good for you.
I need my ego built back up. I need you guys to give me some thumbs up. I need you guys to give me a subscribe on the YouTube channel, Topical Rationalizing the Monkey Brain. Make me feel better, please. Hit that notification bell. That'll really make me feel better. And you know what? Do whatever you want on the podcasting players. If you can give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, that'd be cool. Do it on iTunes if you're one of those people that still uses iTunes. Heck, give us yeah.
Have you uploaded to iTunes?
Yeah, I have.
Podcasts?
Yeah.
You're available on podcasts?
Yeah.
Sick.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll subscribe.
Yeah, maybe we're gonna get Bailey to do that, but yeah, if you guys could do that, that'd be awesome. And just tell your friends. It's fun. Tell your parents. Tell your teachers. Tell your coworkers. Tell your professors maybe if they're into podcasts. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Talk about whatever we talk about. See ya.